and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Liz Truss rules out energy rationing at the final Conservative leadership hustings.
Good morning.
What does that mean? Blackouts?
Yeah, blackouts.
How could she promise there'd be no blackouts?
Well, yeah, Rishi wouldn't make the same commitment.
Yes.
Interesting.
Okay.
So it is 6 o'clock. It's Thursday, the 1st of September. Pinch
Okay.
in the punch. First of the
pinch
month
in the
and no
punch.
returns of any kind.
Okay.
There you go.
Breakfast on GB News. Eamonn and Isabel here, pinching and punching around the news this morning, and leading that news is this.
The 12th and final hustings of the Conservative leadership election took place last night. Liz Truss promised no new taxes and ruled out energy rationing this winter. Rishi Sunak, meanwhile, refused to take any option off the table.
Now that comes as Buckingham Palace announces that the Queen will appoint a new Prime Minister from Balmoral. That has now been officially confirmed instead of London. This break from royal tradition is due to the Queen's mobility issues.
New figures have revealed that the cost of living crisis could plunge 3 million more people into absolute poverty. The report from the Resolution Foundation warns that by next year, 1 in 5 people in Britain could be living below the breadline.
In football transfer deadline day, we'll bring you the biggest deals throughout the morning and some of the shock moves you may have missed throughout the day. And you can join in any of our discussions. You email us, join in the conversation. This is the People's News Channel. We want to know what's important to you. gbviews@gbnews.uk. You can tweet at GB News.
And on that note, being the People's Channel, we are announcing this week's People's Champion this morning, which is always my favourite part of the week because it brings a little bit of light in amongst all the negative news. If you know anyone you'd like nominated and perhaps celebrated on a future Thursday, let us know. Get in touch through gbviews@gbnews.uk with the subject Breakfast People's Champion.
Okay, here we go. Last night was the final Conservative leadership hustings as the race for number 10 finally winds down.
Liz Truss ruled out energy rationing and vowed not to introduce any new taxes, while Rishi Sunak said nothing should be taken off the table. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from the evening.
We have seen crime go up. We have seen some appalling crimes committed. I'm afraid that too often women and girls in London are not able to go out for fear of crime, and I think that is wrong. And I will make sure our police are policing the streets and not policing Twitter.
Now, I've not chosen to say the things that people may want to hear. I've said the things that I believe our country needs to hear. And although it hasn't made my life easy, it is honest, and for me, that is what leadership is all about.
I supported the Rwanda scheme. We need to expand it to more countries, but I will also make sure we legislate so that we can't be overruled by the ECHR and we decide our policies about our borders.
So I introduced a windfall tax as Chancellor,
Yes.
and I'm glad that I did,
Would you
because
do it
it was
again?
the right thing to do. I don't actually know if Liz supports it or doesn't support it, but I think it is absolutely the right thing at a time when energy companies are making billions of pounds of profits because of a war. That's not right. And we should exceptionally tax those and help use those for people's bills.
The fact is, we should have made decisions years ago about nuclear power. We should be using more of the resources in the North Sea. We should be doing fracking in areas where local communities support it. And we should be moving forward to secure our supply.
If we can get 95% mortgages for young first-time buyers with a great credit history, then it won't take them decades to save up for the deposit, and your son can get on the housing ladder quicker, and so can 1 million more young people, because that's what a Conservative government should be delivering, and that's what I would love to do.
See, here's my view. I think Rishi now doesn't give a monkeys because he knows he's lost. Therefore, it was his best performance.
That's always what you used to say to me when I was a fledgling presenter.
Did
when
I?
I cared less, I did better, and that's obviously working for Rishi Sunak. Look, let's talk some more about all of this with some Conservative councillors. One for Epping Forest, Holly Whitbread. She supports Liz Truss and has been on the programme before defending her, has already voted for her. And Rishi Fernando, who, fortunately enough, is supporting Rishi, so it's Rishi for Rishi.
Rishi, did you think Rishi was, off the...
where he was a councillor for? East Hertfordshire. Anyway, carry on.
Very good. And where? I'm not saying
where?
I'm not saying
Yes,
where
where
is
in
that.
East
I'm saying it's a place called Where.
W-A-R-E.
Yeah, and he's the boss man. He's the mayor.
There we go.
He's the mayor of Where.
And it's Rishi for Rishi.
Right. So he's a poet and he doesn't know it. Right. Did you think that Sunak last night was a very good, fluid performance? He's eventually learned how to do all of this. And do you think that's because he thinks it's all over?
No, I don't think it's fair to say it's all over. Rishi and Liz have very different personality styles. Liz is a little bit more set back, whereas Rishi is, you almost see it sort of bubbling out of him in terms of his passion and his charisma. And I do think he truly believes that he will do what is best for the country and with everything that's going on.
Do you believe he'll do what is best for the country? In other words, we know Holly has voted for Liz Truss. Have you cast your vote yet?
I have not cast my vote yet. I will be casting mine online today, before the deadline. And I will be for Rishi. And I do think that, he was the Chancellor during the pandemic. He led us through an incredibly difficult time. Yes, everything he did wasn't popular. However, with this current cost of living crisis, we don't have months, we don't have years, we have days and weeks that we need to really set out and do something about it. Otherwise, people up and down the country are already feeling the hardship, and we don't have time to delay. And I think that's why Rishi is the best person going forward.
You see, for the vast majority of people in this country, Holly, aren't Conservative members. They don't have any say in this. But I think if I was one, I probably would have taken the position of Rishi and not voted till the last minute, so I could have heard all the arguments. Why did you decide to cast your vote so early on? Yeah. And do you have any regrets? Or, given that you said to me before the programme started, Rishi had the room last night at Wembley, a big room.
Yeah, I mean, Rishi did really well last night, and Rishi is a really kind of slick media performer and always does well in that setting. And don't get me wrong, I've always said from the beginning, whoever wins, I'd get behind them. But by the time I'd voted, I think I'd already heard about 3 or 4 hustings. So, I had the opportunity to really listen to the debates. And also we had that whole kind of parliamentary stage, didn't we, where we really knew what they both stood for. So that's kind of why I made my choice quite early on.
And do you accept that a lot of what Liz is saying is playing to her current electorate rather than the wider audience? And this suggestion that she is saying there will be no blackouts this winter, how can she say that?
I think she, it's not necessarily saying there'll be no blackouts, and God hope there's not. I think she was saying that she didn't want to have rationing. I think that was her kind of emphasis. And certainly she is
Sorry, you're going to have to explain that to me. There's either going to be rationing, what there's going to be blackouts or not blackouts. What is she head of electricity now? How can... She's simply made a claim that she cannot substantiate in any matter or form because she doesn't know what is going to happen.
And nobody knows what's going to happen. You know, that's the reality of it. And I think, you know, we're all worried about the winter ahead of us. And I think Liz, if she gets in on Monday, and I hope she does, she's got a tough job and she really needs to get to business straight away. She's talked about this fiscal event or budget, whatever it might be. And it's important she just gets on with it and provides the support.
No, it's important they tell the truth and they're realistic. Why couldn't you just say, who knows, we don't know what way the war in Ukraine is going to be, but I'll tell you, I will do my darnest to make sure that the lights will stay on, which people would understand or applaud.
Is what Rishi said, to be fair.
Yes, and I think, and that's the thing about what yesterday differentiated for me. Liz was saying everything I wanted to hear. Liz she can pull at the heartstrings. However, we are in a crisis at the moment. We are in an incredibly challenging time. And actually, I think we need that realism that, yes, we can have ambitions to move towards what Liz is saying, but now is the time to actually get on and solve this issue.
Here's what made me angry. Well, they're pouncing around that stage, yet another stage last night. I hear today that hospitals around the land could be faced with an extra £2 million a month in terms of their electricity bills, right? And that will have to come out of a clinical budget. Now, instead of Boris Johnson dressed up as Postman Pat or whatever he was doing yesterday, running around in an anti-stab vest, playing to the cameras, he should be in making policy, or they should be in making an agreed policy whereby they say, hospitals, they're our responsibility. We're going to look after hospitals, we're going to look after schools. We're going to fit the bill on that.
Yeah, I think, you know, this is the reality that we're going to have a new government on Monday and they do really need to get on with it. I think that issue of an energy price cap, not just for the domestic user, but for organisations and businesses is a really important one because we've seen so many businesses struggle as well as the NHS. So, you know, there's a lot to do. There's a huge in-trade. Both Liz and Rishi said that last night. There's a huge in-trade that they need to get on with. I think for Boris, he's kind of going around doing his final lap in his last few days. But the reality is the candidates are kind of shadowing out what they're going to do and speaking to civil servants behind the scenes.
In reality, do you think there can ever be a Conservative Party leadership contest like this that goes on so long, especially at a time of crisis? Or do you think that significantly the rules need to be changed, or substantially is what I'm trying to say?
It was certainly too long. You know, it's been a long summer and I know I've had many of the same conversations and debates many times. It is important that the candidates are tested and they go around the country and talk to as many people as possible and as many different members as possible. But I think they certainly have had that test and it has been elongated.
I just want to, Charlie, my producer, if I get this stat wrong, correct me, but if Liz Truss wins on Monday, am I right in thinking she'll be the first Prime Minister in this country to have not been voted for by the people or by MPs?
Theresa May, was she...
Theresa May was chosen by...
Gordon Brown, what happened there?
Am I correct? I don't know. Anyway, correct me if I'm wrong.
Theresa May became Prime Minister before she had an election.
That was
without...
a coronation, wasn't it? So she was chosen by MPs. Anyway, I think that's a stat that we can hold up, but we'll check it out.
Why did you bring that up?
I don't know. I thought it was interesting. But I'll check it out.
But I think it's a good quiz question.
Yeah,
I think it's a
we'll
good
put it down on our list, our long list.
Listen, I'll tell you who's on our list now. We are going to Joelechford. Good morning, Joe. Joe is in East Molly. She is in Kent. And hello, Joe. Very nice to see you. She's a GB News viewer. And
we've had you before.
Listener.
Yes.
Welcome back. So, Joe, what do you want to say about all of this? I mean, you know, you can sense from our mood this morning, we're glad it's the final day of having to talk about this. I suppose you feel the same?
Absolutely. I have listened to a few of the hustings, during the time. I actually listened to it on the radio when I got in from bridge quite late last night, and I think the 21 games of bridge were far more interesting than what was going on at these hustings. It sounded like a game show.
Yeah, well, it is. That's the way these things turn into. I mean, they're all Americanized, really. That is what it's like.
It's really uncomfortable that we've got to this. You know, a few months ago, OK, we were having Partygate for goodness how long, and now it just seems to have turned upside down. It's just awful.
It's awful, and it is a complete open door, I would have thought, Joe, for any opposition party, Labour, Lib Dems, whatever it happens to be. And sometimes I'm surprised that they just haven't kicked the door down and taken over and said, because, you know, while Boris Johnson's dressing up as a policeman yesterday, that awful news that hospitals will have to pay an extra £2 million a month on their energy bills, which will mean more cancelled operations, more job redundancies, more people not being looked after. It's disgraceful.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to be working behind a desk and doing something.
Yes, exactly. But who? You know, I'm afraid the
Well, Boris, I would
Conservative...
suggest, while he's still there.
Pardon? Well,
Boris, I would
I
suggest.
mean, to be honest, they made it very clear they wanted rid of Boris Johnson, whatever you think of him. But then they've criticised him for the last few weeks for not doing anything. But I seem to remember he was almost threatened at one of those committee meetings that you will not go for an election, you will not do this, you will not do that, as if he was a small child. So I think he's just gone off and decided to let everybody get on with it.
Joe, you're absolutely right, and he did promise he would just be a caretaker, didn't he? What do you make of some of the speculation that I've been reading in some of the papers that Rishi Sunak, who's got this kind of, what did we call it, you know, sort of not really care, he's got nothing to lose attitude that he had last night because he's won the argument, was what he's been saying, but he's lost this contest. Some suggestions that whoever inherits this job on Monday has a poisoned chalice, and whoever loses could actually end up being Prime Minister further down the line. So do you think that if Rishi Sunak doesn't win on Monday, he could still be Prime Minister one day?
Well, I doubt that, actually. And you're quite right that I think that he probably knows that he's lost this contest. But, you know, I do watch GB News virtually all the time, and on Dan Wootton, I believe the night before last, it was revealed that he sat round the cabinet table against the lockdowns, and why on earth didn't he get up from the table, resign, and save us all this heartache? He's spent all these billions of pounds helping everybody out, keeping their jobs, and these poor people are probably going to lose their jobs anyway if they're in hospitality, because the pubs and everything are going to close. So that's what I don't like, is the fact that he had the responsibility to say this can't happen, but he just sat there and then
well, that's politics. That's politics for you. And we've got two politicians in the studio here, and I'm going to get them to speak to you and maybe, you know, ease your concerns on that. Rishi, first of all, who is a mayor. He's the mayor of where? That is good. Mayor of where? So what would you say there to Jo and her concerns about? A lot of people think it's quite easy that, you know, he should have just got up and resigned if he did object. But politics and the machinations of politics and staying in the game, could you want to explain that to her?
Exactly. It's one of those that, had he taken a step back earlier, you know, you can't help steer the ship unless you're on the bridge, so to speak. So I think it was the right decision for him to be there. It was an incredibly challenging time. He became the Chancellor just weeks before the pandemic started to kick off. And I think stepping back mid-crisis would have been the wrong decision. So I think it was right that he stayed on. I agree that, you know, the pandemic, lockdowns, restrictions, they weren't ideal. However, at the time, it was based off the information we had. And that's why now I think he is the best person going forward, because whether you like the furlough scheme and the measures that were put in place, he was able to bring them in just a matter of weeks. And that's what we need right now with this current crisis.
Holly, what would you say?
I think it's difficult, isn't it? It's always a balancing act when you're looking at whether you should stay or go. But I mean, if Rishi did have those concerns at the time, I suppose hindsight's a great thing to say it now, but perhaps he should have been saying it more at the time. But it is a difficult balancing act. I mean, at the time they were dealing with a national emergency. It was a really difficult, challenging period, and it's all very well for us to kind of talk about it now, but it was a very unprecedented time.
It is interesting to note that the ardent Boris fans, which, Joe, I would put you in that bracket, don't make the same, you know, criticism of Boris Johnson. You know, you didn't sort of question why he was in favour of the lockdown. So it's difficult to always treat these politicians with the same level of scepticism. It all gets very personal, doesn't it? Look, a final thought then on Jo there, Holly. She said that she may not vote Conservative again. Do you worry that the outcome of this leadership election on Monday could lose some Conservative voters in the long run?
I think whoever wins now has got a huge challenge to unite the party, and actually I think Liz will do that. I think that's her, other than getting on with the huge issues that this country faces, kind of uniting the Conservative Party so that we're fit to fight and win the next election is really, really important.
And Mayor Fernando, no matter who wins, what would you say to Jo about the party?
I'd say the party is a broad church, and that, as has always been the case, we will get behind whoever becomes the next future Prime Minister, be that Rishi or Liz. And I think with what is going on at the moment, it's the Conservative Party that's the one that will tackle head-on this cost of living crisis. So, I think they are the party to support and, have faith.
Jo, thank you very much indeed. Rishi, thank you. And Holly, thank you very much indeed. Jo, just final thing before you go. Jo, what about the bridge? Did you win the bridge last night, or what was it? Was it a good session?
We came in the middle. We usually come bottom, so yeah, something's happening.
Wow.
Good for you.
You said you were in late last night. Do you have a little cup of tea or anything to celebrate these things?
A nightcap.
Is there a nightcap?
A coffee I have.
Okay.
Very good.
No wonder you're up early. That's kept you buzzing all night. Really appreciate it. For me, Smalling and Kent, you were listening to the views there of GB News viewer and listener, Joelechford. Thanks very much,
See you
Jo.
again. Thank you. Right, with the time at 6:19, we're going to bring you up to date on our latest headlines this morning. Boris Johnson is expected to deliver a speech today on the country's energy future. It comes amid speculation that the government will give the sign-off for the Sizewell C nuclear plant in Suffolk.
The charity Medical Justice has called for the government to abandon its plan to send migrants to Rwanda and free those awaiting removal. Medical Justice doctors have found that the mental health of detainees has been severely impacted by the threat of being removed to Rwanda. They say the detained are suffering from conditions such as PTSD and depression.
The NHS has called for volunteers as it relaunches the COVID-19 booster programme ahead of the winter months. The initiative will target a total of 26 million people, including those who are clinically at risk and people aged 50 and over. Volunteers will be asked to help at vaccination sites with non-clinical tasks, with no qualifications required and expenses covered.
OK, the time now 6:20. Around 6 million disabled people across the country will receive £150 this month to help with the rising cost of living.
But Disabled Rights UK says that this one-off payment's nowhere near enough, as disabled people face rising care costs on top of inflation and skyrocketing bills. Ellie Costello has the story.
I think the fact that we are at the end of summer, but everyone's minds are on January, really. How are you going to cope if you only just make ends meet, or you don't now? I think everyone will be getting into debt just to pay their energy bills.
Mary Broddle has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a rare inherited condition that affects your tissue and muscles. She struggles to walk and suffers with extreme fatigue.
I had to leave my career about 3 years ago. 20 years in engineering, it just became impossible. Now I spend 90% of my time in my house, and so a cold house is quite worrying.
Mary is now setting up an online embroidery business to help combat the rising bills.
Our bills have already doubled, and if they're going to double again, what's that going to be? £700-800 a month? It's very expensive to be disabled. I think it's scary, if you have a level of disability where you need electrical equipment going for whatever reason, whether it's through ventilators or some sort of feeding tubes or something, that must be terrifying. I have to use a mobility scooter. I'm going to have to look into what that costs to charge up, something I've never really considered before.
6 million people will be entitled to this £150 one-off payment to help with the cost of living crisis. Now, the payment is to help with the higher cost of mobility and care needs. and the £150 is on top of the £650 that disabled people on the lowest incomes are also entitled to. The £150 payments are expected to be paid from the end of this month, but Mary doesn't think they'll go far enough.
It's going to go nowhere. It's not even going to cover the rise in the bills that we've had already. What, maybe 1 month of my extra bill cost in the last 6 months? It won't cover 1 month's rise from October. It may pay for some thermal leggings and a pair of slippers, but that's it.
The Minister for Disabled People, Health and Work, Chloe Smith, told GB News that we know disabled people can face additional costs, which is why we're acting to help reduce the financial pressures on the most vulnerable. This payment comes alongside wider support targeted at disabled people, including help with transport and prescription costs. We know it's a worrying time for some people, and I'd urge them to check they're getting all the support on offer by searching Help for Households. Mary and her family are already preparing for the cold winter months ahead.
We've cut back on everything, even Amazon Prime's going. And as a disabled person, that delivery service has been pretty important to me because I can't nip to the shop easily. We've sold the second car. We don't need 2 cars really, so that's gone to cut back. So we've just looked at everything, but I think it'll be several layers of blankets, buying thermals to layer up with. Now's the time to buy when they're in the sales and they're discounted before you're trying to get hold of them in December.
So what's Mary's message for the inbound Prime Minister next week?
I think there needs to be more targeted support to disabled households. And in general, the country can't do nothing or do only what it's done so far. There has to be intervention. I think the disabled community is very forgotten about, and we're just going to be hidden in our homes. We're just sort of going to suffer even more.
Ellie Costello, GB News.
It's just so hard for everybody.
It's the stark reality, isn't it? 2022, I think it's going to be one of those winters that we never forget, and our children will never forget, for all the wrong reasons.
When is the world going to get better? What would make the world better? Give us your suggestions on that one. That's a good idea. What would make... You know, sometimes that simple things like music makes the world better.
Yeah, the
or a
people's
nice
champion, celebrating positivity.
Could be. Sunshine.
Sunshine, yeah.
Nice views.
Yes, holidays.
Football teams winning. You know, sort of things.
Sport. Escapism is what it's all about. When there's a lot of hardship, you need escapism more than ever.
Absolutely. That's why I like
drinking.
Movies. Do you know what I hate?
Yeah.
I hate woke, message-ridden movies. I like anything with Bruce Willis in it or Liam Neeson in it, whatever it is. That's all I care about.
I used to go,
I just want
what's a good movie? Let's find out what's won an Oscar. And now I see what's won an Oscar. It's woke to the course. It's good. I don't know where to choose my films.
I went to the cinema last Friday to see a 40-year-old movie.
Which film?
Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
For goodness sake. You know, I've never seen a Star Trek.
Do you often look at Captain Kirk and see me?
No. I don't even know what he looks like, other than hasn't he got 3 ears or something?
Oh, no.
His left ear, his right ear, and his final front ear. That's one of my favourite jokes. We're going to take a break.
Oh, dear. We're on a bike to Paris after the weather.
Good morning, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather updates. A dry and a fine day today. A little chilly out there this morning in places, but overall by this afternoon, a bit warmer than yesterday. However, the weather is on the change. Much wetter conditions heading our way. Low pressure approaching from the south and the northwest, squeezing away this area of high pressure. But that high is still dominant today. So, as I said, most places are dry. An easterly breeze bringing again a cool feel on some North Sea coasts and a bit more cloud across eastern England. 1 or 2 showers here and there too. But for the vast majority, it's dry, it's bright, with some spells of sunshine. We will see some showers heading up towards the Channel Isles, and the sunshine perhaps turning a little hazy across the south as the cloud starts to increase. But temperatures here still getting up into the mid-20s. Touch warmer than yesterday for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Many urban areas up to 20 Celsius here. Through this evening, I think we'll start to see a few more showers, initially just spreading up from France over the Channel into southern parts of England, but 1 or 2 more over northeast England, the cloud increasing across the northwest also. And by morning time, we'll see a few showers over the Midlands and into parts of Wales. A relatively warm night across the south, 15, 16 in towns and cities here, and a warmer night for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but still down to single figures in rural areas here. And a bright start here to Friday with some sunny spells, but we are going to see both those weather fronts we talked about, one coming up from the south, one coming in from the northwest, increasing the amounts of cloud and bringing more and more showers by the afternoon. Much of eastern England, good part of northern England will stay dry still, and even further south, if you're after rainfall, Friday's showers are still going to be very hit and miss, so no guarantee. But we are looking at much wetter conditions for all as we head into the weekend. Those two weather systems joining together to form one area of low pressure that's going to last through the weekend, bringing all of us some spells of rain. Goodbye.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's 6:30 still to come on the programme this morning.
At 6:50, a third of Pakistan has been left underwater by floods. The UN has referred to it as a monsoon on steroids. We'll be going live to Lahore to get a perspective from the ground.
Terrible suffering, tragedy for people there. Then at 10 to 8, a personal trainer to the stars like David Beckham, Kylie Minogue, every film star that you could name on their set. His name is James Davis, and he's got a book out called The Body, and he'll be telling you why your body is so important. See, this is the sort of thing I think we should be taught at school. That, you know, your body, this is how it works.
Body is a temple.
This is how you maintain it, and this will stop you.
You're not taught that at school? Because he's your trainer as well, isn't he?
Well, he's my physio.
Isn't he called the Sherlock Holmes of...
No, they call me that.
I thought they called him the Sherlock Holmes of, like, trying to identify pain sources.
Yeah, well, basically, he's saying when it gets to pain, it's gone too far, how you can maintain without pain. And you can join in any of the discussions today. Yes, and you have been doing that. Details on your screen. Normal. Nige in Weymouth. What's Nige saying?
You've got a problem with that. I would abbreviate to Nige if I was Nigel. He said leadership should have been done and dusted after a month at the most. Couldn't agree more. Time to get on with turning this country into the powerhouse it should be.
Good fighting talk, Nige. Robert in Glasgow. Why we line a so-called democratic nation, 180,000 Tory members to choose the next Prime Minister.
Well, that's the democratic process that's been agreed. By the way, on that stat that I was quoting, I was right. If Liz Truss is chosen on Monday in the contest, she'll be the first modern Prime Minister in history to not have been selected by MPs or the British public. Really interesting, I think. Anyway, we'll see if that happens.
That was really interesting, Isabel. Really interesting that she wasn't
selected
by MPs or the public. That's fascinating.
Does that not interest you?
No.
No.
She'll be
This is what he's saying. Why are we letting a Democratic nation, 180,000, decide the future?
She will be.
A lot of people
the vote
upset
will
by that.
close on Friday. She'll be announced on Monday. Yeah.
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 That's fine.
Really interesting.
It's really interesting. Nigel find that really interesting as well.
Right,
Really
we're going to move on. Play the sting.
Let's go through the. Who's doing the newspapers today, Isabel?
It's Liz Kershaw, because it's a Thursday, and the property expert, Kunle Barker. Very warm welcome to the programme to both of you.
Thank you.
Liz Kershaw, we didn't give you your normal introduction there, broadcaster extraordinaire.
I love all the T-shirts and things at the moment. Liz for PM. Loving it.
or your nickname, Long Leg Lizzie, we were hearing trying to get a ladder to get up onto that chair.
Lizzie Longlegs.
Oh, sorry. Lizzie Longlegs.
Yeah.
I'll get it right next time.
Right.
Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Again,
I like Liz. I like that. It's my Sunday night like
Yeah, I'm going to bring this up again. And this news today that hospitals will pay up to £2 million more for their energy costs a month.
Yeah.
A month. And that money comes from their clinical budgets.
Yeah.
The inaction from the government is absolutely disgraceful on all of this. Nobody doing anything until we get Liz or Rishi installed on Monday. And your front page of the I newspaper on this one, what have you got to say?
Well, Boris Johnson is in the papers today, to be fair, saying he's set to announce the green light for Sizewell C nuclear power plant. That's in Somerset. Sizewell B has taken forever and it's not ready yet. Oh, sorry, Sizewell. There's the other, Hinkley is in Somerset. That's not ready yet either. But nuclear power has a long, long lead time on it. I think everybody's been focusing on domestic energy consumption and bills this winter, quite rightly. You know, people facing £3,500, £5,000. It goes up every day, the estimates, on top of what's now being forecast as 22% general inflation. So, you know, keeping warm, eating. But the thing is, this will be in the next segment as well, people are now, as you say, looking at industry, and we'll put the NHS in that because, you know, it's an industry, a health industry, the workplace. And if businesses go out, the NHS won't go out of business because of cost, but fewer operations will be done. As you said, it'll come out of clinical budgets. But it's not just people not being able to heat their houses. They might have to be at home all day because their place of work might have shut down altogether because there's no cap on the cost of energy for businesses, and it's going through the roof. And I'm reading stories in various papers this morning, which I'll collate for the next one. But there are companies where they're now telling staff, factories coming to work this winter, put your vest on, your woolly jumper, your leggings.
But your point is, we know all of this happens. There doesn't seem to be any joined-up policy. There's no big broad. If I hear another, we're giving you £3.80 off this, and we're giving you credit for that. I'm fed up with all this tinkering.
Yeah, no. What I'm trying to say, Eamonn, is that nobody's really discussing the potential job losses purely because the factories can't afford to heat them. You know, if you're booking a hotel like I was yesterday, the hotel can't expect guests to go and be wearing a jumper and a hot water bottle in bed, can they? All those prices are going up. Yeah. People are going to be able to work in the hospitality sector. People are going to be out of work in car manufacturing because the Car Manufacturers Association is saying they can't afford the electricity for the production lines.
You take restaurants, you know, and say you pay £18 for a meal or £20 or something. That will become £25, £27. People will stop going. They'll say, that's a bit pricey. We're not doing that. Staff will be laid off. Business are going to go to the wall on all of this. And we're hearing no big plan, Kunle.
No, there's no big plan, and the government need to do something now. They need to act. You know, Germany today have announced that manufacturing plants are cutting back on manufacturing. Last night, Brewdog, a pub chain, said that they're closing a load of pubs as well because they can't afford this. You know, Liz is right. The problem with with energy bills are, if your bill goes up from, monthly bill goes up from 100 to 200, then to 300, that's bad. But if you are a business, so running swimming pools or something, their costs have gone up for electricity from 700,000 to 2.5 million. And the quantum is the issue there. So how do you deal with that? And Liz is right. What that will mean is businesses going out of business.
People lose their jobs. There's been all this stuff for the last few years. Zero by 2030 energy carbon emissions. That is just window dressing. This brings home to us that every single thing we do in modern life is built on fossil fuels. No, that's the reality.
No, it's built on political strategy and megalomaniacism from President Putin. And here's a whole other thing, Liz.
Our lives are built on fossil fuels. He's disrupted them because he's withdrawn that bedrock.
He is out to destroy the West. And the point is, I think there's going to be a scary situation where at one stage the West is going to go, right, that's enough. And the one way of dealing with it is to get rid of Putin, overthrowing Putin, or take Putin out of this. It is so complex, it is so awful, but Boris Johnson dressed up in a flak jacket yesterday as a policeman is not solving the problem.
Although we're told Nadeem Zahawi working night and day on a...
but he's not the Prime Minister.
He is the
and there's nobody's making any statements on this, and people are scared. People are scared about this, and somebody needs to be making a public statement. I don't care.
And they're scared not just in the UK, as you just referred, they're scared in Germany. If you're working at Mercedes-Benz, your shifts are being cut down. If you're in France, you're scared. All over the Western world that relies on Russian energy supply, we're all being held to ransom, and everybody's lives. Now, if the Green lobby wanted us all to go back to living in mud huts with sackcloth shirts, Putin's doing the job for them, because our standards and way of life are going to change dramatically.
No doubt. Again, no cheery news for you this morning. We will take a break and we're going to continue the newspapers.
Not right now.
Not now.
That's all right.
Not for another 6 minutes. Right.
Let's talk about the housing crisis, and this is
we'll take a break in 6 minutes' time. Hang on for that.
There's a bit of a shock report from the Resolution Foundation, which, to be honest, is the thing that's had my jaw on the floor this morning. 14 million people will be living in poverty in Great Britain by next year. 3 million more will be living in absolute poverty in the next 2 years. Modern Britain.
It's ridiculous. I mean, we're worried. I mean, we are facing, as a nation, one of the biggest economic challenges that we have, and it's going to affect everybody in very real ways. And some of these, I've read reports this morning in The Guardian about things like pulmonary disease, emphysema, bronchitis. I mean, it sounds Dickensian almost. You can't believe that is what we're talking about. But this is the problem with this energy crisis. But I think there is something that the government... I think Eamon's right, the government are asleep at the wheel here. There is something they can be doing, and particularly with electricity, because the way that the wholesale market works is based on what they call the merit system. So actually, when they say the whole price of electricity going up, it's because they work out the price of the most expensive way of supplying electricity. Gas-fired stations, and they pay everybody on the same amount. So you've got like a few stations that are pushing up the prices of electricity.
Liz had a very good point, as you always do, Liz. I have lots of good points. But I think who people are getting off the hook is like the Cameron coalition government 10, 12, 15 years ago, and the Lib Dem involvement in that, and people's involvement who said, no, let's not build any more nuclear power stations. Let's not store gas. Let's not do all of this. We are paying the price of this, and I think retrospectively we should be going back and looking at the ministers responsible then who said no, 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 and we're now in a situation where we don't keep our own gas, that we're not mining enough, that we're not fracking enough, that we're not taking enough gas out of the sea. Now we're all being held to ransom by President Putin.
Children may die.
And the people who
turn off their heat.
The people who've protested against fracking in their areas, whether it's in the northwest near Blackpool or in the south east Downs, they may change their minds when they're really struggling. It's
going to happen.
Because we need that. Also, it's good news that the huge gas storage tank under the North Sea has been checked out and now safe, so we can revert to storing Norwegian gas. It is all short-sighted. I would say, like, on the new Prime Minister on Monday, it's so small fry now. We should be, you mentioned coalition, but just stop bickering. You know, Keir Starmer, if it's Liz Truss, whatever, whoever's running the Lib Dems this week, just get together and do what's best for the country. And also, stop bickering about Brexit with our European neighbours. You know, we're all in this together. Let's work something out for the common good, because strength in numbers, divided we stand, divided we fall, I should say. We should stand up together against Putin and think about what's really important. It's not blooming pronouns and, you know, all this stuff. It's actual survival of our modern way of life.
But I think if whoever's Prime Minister on Tuesday, one of the things they could do almost immediately to help with this energy crisis is just change the way that they price electricity. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
60% of our electricity can be supplied by renewable sources. They have a marginal cost of zero. So at the moment, we're paying those people, you know, based on the marginal cost of gas supply, which is huge.
It's ridiculous.
So if we stop that immediately, that could slash the cost of electricity. But they won't, because why? Because of all the people in power, all the money have built all these power stations, and they want their money back. But the government could do something about it.
OK, let's move on to other stories now. In the Mail, this is page 13, Cunley, and woke police, except the Prime Minister says all they did was just woke a load of drug dealers.
Yeah, I think probably it's the last thing that the police need at the moment. They've got a difficult job at the best of times, and being involved in a PR stunt for an outgoing Prime Minister is probably the last thing that they need. That they need at the moment. I mean, I've got a lot of respect for the police. When anything goes wrong, they're the first people that you call, and they always come. And
no, they don't.
No, they don't.
Well, they have done for me anyway.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
What's the stat for burglaries? I mean, most burglaries
3%.
don't get,
and
they do, some streets they decide if you're on an even-numbered house, you'll get a visit from the police.
But I don't blame the police in that. I blame politicians.
Yeah,
for that.
I mean that's all to do. That's to do with funding and cuts, and not giving the police the resources that they need to do the job that we need them to do. And what I probably should have said is they'd want to come, and they would do if there were enough of them about, if they had the funding that they need, and that's the fault of the government.
Can you imagine being a drug dealer and maybe taking your own products, and you suddenly walking up and Boris Johnson's at the end of the bed, and you think, God, that stuff was good.
They used to do that on a comedy show, didn't they? What's his name? McIntyre. And he would turn up at people's living rooms in the middle of the night, or bedrooms in the middle of the night.
I once turned up at somebody's wedding. Me and my brother, we went to the wrong wedding. And they were really thrilled. We didn't realise we were at the wrong wedding.
Did we spare a thought for cannabis dealers during the fuel crisis?
Oh, yeah, that's going to be difficult,
How can they
That's right, all the plants will die. Because the electricity bills for that.
Cannabis dealers are all going to go out of business.
Well, I just have to sell more.
Yeah.
To make it viable.
Maybe that's one of the positives.
If you think you have it hard, imagine being a cannabis grower.
I'm already doing... I don't know if other people are, but I'm already doing tiny things like I'm washing my hands because I've got a combi boiler, so you turn the hot tap and it fires up the boiler. So I'm already washing my hands in cold water with loads of soap. And turning everything off. And everybody's getting an air fryer. Because it's cheaper than the oven. And then I cook, I think, I'll put this roast chicken in, but I'll also put some sausages in and some, for breakfast tomorrow and do it all at once.
But none of that is necessarily a bad thing when you think of it.
No, it's a good thing.
I think part of the reason why you're saying many people are doing it, perhaps people of our age who've been through this before, and maybe we see this is how bad it could get. You know what's on the horizon. You try to tell youngsters to turn taps off and switches off.
I feel sorry for people who live in blocks of flats and their only source of heating is electricity. And they've no alternative at all. And it's not that just that it's expensive, it's that they're totally dependent on the supply.
Okay.
Yeah.
Liz and Cundy, we've got to break off from you, and we're going to be back in about 40 minutes' time.
Yeah, hopefully we can talk. I really want to talk about this Telegraph front page. Stop ducking the need for stable families. We'll do that in the next.
Yeah. Can we talk about something happy as well?
Yeah, find something happy for us.
Find lots of things happy.
Unfortunately, we've got more bad news to bring you after the break on the terrible situation in Pakistan. Over 30 million people have been displaced by this. Over 1,000 dead. More details for you after this very quick break.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
With the time creeping towards 10 minutes to 7. Let's bring you up to date with what is happening news-wise.
A think tank has warned that the new Prime Minister should be prepared for the biggest squeeze in living standards for a century. A report by the Resolution Foundation shows disposable incomes are on par to fall by 10% this year and next. They say a number of people living in absolute poverty is set to rise by 3 million to 14 million people unless economic forecasts change.
Some 400,000 households in England aren't protected by the energy price cap. They need urgent help, according to the National Housing Federation. It says a large number of people on shared heat networks live in supported or sheltered housing, with over 70% of them above the age of 50.
That's you. Let us know this morning. Also, the Prince of Wales has guest edited the British Afro-Caribbean newspaper The Voice, calling for unity through diversity. In a special edition for its 40th anniversary, Prince Charles speaks about his vision to tackle racial injustice and unfairness.
Now, the Disasters Emergency Committee is urging people to donate money to help millions of people affected by flooding in Pakistan. You know how difficult that must be in the present climate, but over 1,000 people have been killed. The UN has called this a monsoon on steroids.
Yeah, really shocking situation in Pakistan. We can go live to Lahore and speak to Dr. Hamid Khan, journalist and chairman at the Alama Mashriki Welfare Society. Good morning to you. Just bring us up to date on the situation, on what's how many days into this now you are. In some areas, floodwaters beginning to recede, but the scale of the suffering only really beginning to emerge.
Yes, thank you, Isabel. You're right. I mean, the suffering is unimaginable, and it is a very catastrophic situation. If I'll put some, figures and facts in front of you, you would be shocked. And with the situation that at the moment, 1/3 of Pakistan has come under the flood, and which means that over 266,000 kilometers square area is under the flood, which is more than the entire United Kingdom. Then, if you look into the 33 million people are suffering because and they have been displaced because of this flood, which is over half of the population of United Kingdom. Then if we look into the loss of lives, it's over 2,000. The toll has gone up to over 2,000 people, and every third loss is either a child or a woman. So I mean, in the other financially, it has given losses of over $10 billion because there are over 4,000 kilometer roads has been damaged, and then hundreds of thousands of houses has been demolished or vanished. And if you look into the entire situation, it needs a lot of attention and help from the world and rest of the world. And I was looking at some figures that it is going to take a lot of time for recovery, and at the moment they are just calculating the losses. They're just trying to rescue the people, and if you look into the entire situation, it is very critical. I mean, the people are living under no shelter, or they are having a very temporary shelter, food crisis, and medicines are their availability is not there. So I mean, there are organizations, local charity organizations are working on the ground. Government is working. Pakistan Army is working. Pakistan Army is doing 24/7 a rescue operation. The Chief of Army Staff is involved. Other corps commanders involved. On the other hand, the Prime Minister is involved. Ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan is involved. So it needs a lot of attention from the world organizations, such as World Bank, IMF, and UNICEF, and others.
It is just unbelievable. I can't even imagine how you rebuild from all of that. But there is a plan, and that plan breaks down to rescue, obviously take care of people who need rescuing, who need saved, who need to be made safe. Restoration, get things back up and running. And then rehabilitation, put people back to where they were and whatever. But my point about all of this, Dr. Khan, is and the state of the world and the climate crisis. How can you do all that knowing that this could easily happen again?
Absolutely right, Eamonn. That's a very critical question. But the only way is that we had similar, flood in 2010, and there was lots of things being done since then. Like we prepared a lot of things, but still there was a lot of recommendations, which was not completed in these 12 years. But I think this time they need to have, when we talk about restoration and rehabilitation, they have to work on the recommendations of the world, environmental associations and others, that they need to consider all the facts. And major fact is that this time they have to build a proper housing where they have some kind of resistance against the flood waters or rains, and then they have to relocate them on a safer areas, not on the banks of the rivers, or not on near the canals, and not on the way of landslidings. So these are the factors they have to consider. I was talking to one of the environmentalists, and he was saying that these are the things which we have to be considered for the restoration and rehabilitation.
Hamid, I've got to interrupt you. We're running out of time, and you've sent us so many pictures, and absolutely heartbreaking to see. Hamid, this means a lot to a lot of people in Britain as well who are Pakistani or of Pakistani descent, and it must be, the whole idea of communicating and trying to see if family is okay, it must be distressing for a lot of people in the United Kingdom.
Of course, it is indeed, because, the Pakistanis living UK or Europe, they are very much concerned, and one way or the other, they have so many relatives who've been trapped in during this flood devastation and disaster. But, the best thing is that there are a lot of Pakistanis who are sending, donations and charities across the world, from America, from Australia, from Canada, and from Arab countries, because there are about 3 million Pakistanis only in the Arab countries. And then there is a contribution from other organizations. But I would say that the world, modern countries, I know there is a crisis, financial crisis or energy crisis itself in the Europe and America and everywhere. But still, because of this disaster, I think developed countries has to come forward to give much more help, which they have announced is not enough. And Pakistan needs a lot of more help in terms of, not only in terms of money, in terms of technology, in terms of support, in terms of medicines, food, and other things. So I think this is the time when it is a test for the humanity. It is a test for the world, that how they can do the safety or the security of the people of Pakistan who are suffering. It's a 33 million people. It's a matter of, and if they will not be rescued in time, there will be losses of life much more than what it is at the moment.
Thank you for speaking up for them. Thank you for drawing our attention to the needs there. Dr. Hamid Khan, thank you very much.
Yeah, we are thinking of you. United Nations appealing for £160 million in emergency funding. We know everyone is short on cash, but if you can, the UN is urging you to do all you can. After the break, we'll have more on last night's final hustings as the final voting for the next Prime Minister is continuing to take place for one more day. See you after this.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Liz Truss rules out energy rationing, risking blackouts this winter at the final Conservative leadership hustings.
Hello there, folks. Welcome on board. It's 7 o'clock, Thursday, the 1st of September. You're tuned in to Breakfast.
Pinch and a punch. If you were listening on the radio, I just punched him in the arm.
Yeah,
September!
Just in case you were watching there and you saw a whole sort of case of abuse being inflicted on me there.
Don't be such a snowflake. How woke.
Well, imagine
we used
if
to do that as children, pinch and a punch the first month, but no return of any kind.
Imagine if I
You did already punch me on air once in the last hour. We could just
saying this hour, if I did that, there would be outcry across the nation.
Quite right. You're bigger than me.
Anyway, it's Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel. Leading the news this morning.
It is the 12th, and many will say, luckily, the final hustings, or indeed it was, last night in the Conservative leadership election. Liz Truss promised no new taxes. She ruled out energy rationing this winter. Rishi Sunak, meanwhile, playing his cards close to his chest, refused to take any of those options off the table.
Now, it comes as Buckingham Palace announces that the Queen will appoint the new Prime Minister from Balmoral instead of London. The break from royal tradition is reportedly due to the Queen's mobility issues.
New figures have revealed that the cost of living crisis could plunge 3 million more people into absolute poverty. The report from the Resolution Foundation warns that by next year, 1 in 5 people in modern Britain could be living below the breadline.
Transfer deadline day in football, 11 o'clock tonight. The window closes. We're going to be bringing you the biggest deals throughout the morning and some of the shock moves you may have missed on that one. Harry Redknapp will be our guest.
Yeah, and we'll talk about apps later on. Dating apps, are they good, are they bad? Let us know your thoughts.
What's that got to do with football?
I'm just telling people what else is coming up.
I was getting all worked up about football and transfer deadline day.
50% of the audience, assuming it's 50-50 male and female, probably just tune out of that. So I was just trying to hook them back in.
See, I was thinking,
blah, blah,
if
blah,
I was in the dating market again, would it be important to me that I had a partner who was interested in football? I mean, I did have.
I think it's probably a good idea if you're as obsessed and your moods depend on it as much as they do in your case.
Well, you see, I was deceived by my present wife.
She tried. Yeah, well, I did.
She pretended she was interested in football. She even came to me with matches, and then
I'm sure you didn't pretend at all to charm her. You pretended
as soon as
you
she
were
got me,
tidy.
as soon as she got me, she wasn't interested in football.
Well,
then
it's
after
a common
that.
tale. It's a common tale. Don't blame
Favourite
your
player
reading.
is Brian Robson. I love Man United. Oh, I love Man. It was all lies. It was deception.
Well,
can you not sort of return goods on that basis?
Yeah, smoke and mirrors, my husband would say. Look, we're talking about all the subjects that you can imagine this morning. Get in touch with your views. We've also got a bit of levity coming up. We'll be talking about the People's Champion. We're announcing one this morning. So if you would like to be one of those lucky people, get in touch. You know how, with the title Breakfast People's Champion.
So, here we go. The final Conservative leadership hustings, hurrah, took place last night as the race for number 10 finally winds down. You see, what you've got to learn is just don't ad-lib.
Don't talk to me in the sting.
If you only knew what I say to her during the sting.
It's not.
And she knows I'm right. She sits there and she goes,
I'm a professional and you push me.
But you
and
turn
I get
to me.
Giggles,
do you not sort of sit
swear.
and say, "You're so wise, Eamonn. You're so wise. If only I was as wise as you."
You're a nightmare. Liz Truss doesn't have to put up with this.
Anyway,
last
Liz Truss comes out with things that she can't back up. So she says, "There's going to be no blackouts over winter." How does she know? How does she know?
Well, because she's going to be the next Prime Minister.
Well, she doesn't know there's not going to be any blackouts, right?
Rishi Sunak didn't agree.
No. Liz Truss said she will not introduce any new taxes. And what did Rishi Sunak say?
Well, he said he wouldn't take anything off the table, in stark contrast to Liz Truss. Let's take a look at some of those highlights from Wembley and the hustings.
Let's, please.
We have seen crime go up. We have seen some appalling crimes committed. I'm afraid that too often women and girls in London are not able to go out for fear of crime, and I think that is wrong. And I will make sure our police are policing the streets and not policing Twitter.
Now, I've not chosen to say the things that people may want to hear. I've said the things that I believe our country needs to hear. And although it hasn't made my life easy, it is honest, and for me, that is what leadership is all about.
I supported the Rwanda scheme. We need to expand it to more countries, but I will also make sure we legislate so that we can't be overruled by the ECHR and we decide our policies about our borders.
So I introduced a windfall tax as Chancellor,
Yes.
and I'm glad that I did,
Would you
because
do it
it was
again?
the right thing to do. I don't actually know if Liz supports it or doesn't support it, but I think it is absolutely the right thing at a time when energy companies are making billions of pounds of profits because of a war. That's not right. And we should exceptionally tax those and help use those for people's bills.
The fact is, we should have made decisions years ago about nuclear power. We should be using more of the resources in the North Sea. We should be doing fracking in areas where local communities support it. And we should be moving forward to secure our supply.
If we can get 95% mortgages for young first-time buyers with a great credit history, then it won't take them decades to save up for the deposit, and your son can get on the housing ladder quicker, and so can 1 million more young people, because that's what a Conservative government should be delivering, and that's what I would love to do.
It's ridiculous. Absolutely.
Joining us now in the studio, the Deputy Editor of Conservative Home. That's Henry Hill there. We were just watching and discussing things. And I suppose from the performance of Rishi Sunak, were we looking at a man who thinks, I'm not going to win this anyway, I'm going to go for broke on this, because his performance was actually very good?
Well, I mean, his performance has always been better in all of the hustings and the TV debates. He's been the stronger performer. I think it simply hasn't mattered because what he's been saying has not been saleable to Conservative activists who are tired of hearing caution, who think we've been in office for 12 years and they want someone to be bolder. But no, absolutely, if you're watching last night, and I was there to see the last one, he was streets ahead in terms of the way he handled questions, the way he handled the audience. He's the stronger performer.
He hasn't been downcast, though, by the fact that he knows he's going to lose. I mean, he must know. And I read this week that he's been saying to people, you know, I've won the argument. I might not have won this contest, but I think for right-minded people, they see that kind of, I told you so.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a case where in a couple of years' time, if he keeps his powder dry, especially if Liz Truss's plans turn out to be inflationary and all the rest of it, it might be the case that everyone's looking back and going, actually, Rishi Sunak had the right of that argument. And then, who knows, if the Conservatives lose the 2024 election and they have another leadership contest, the fourth in 8 years, maybe he'll be able to run again. So I think he's come out of this quite strong.
All of that being said, you know, Liz Truss hasn't yet become the leader. And, you know, the spirit of fairness, let's give her a chance before we completely denigrate her. She's going to take her time before she comes out with a fiscal event.
Just think, what would the reaction be if she didn't win within the Conservative?
It would be cosmically funny. It would be absolutely hilarious because so many people
meltdown.
Yeah, so many people have bet their careers on Liz Truss winning, and that's why her, lots of her campus snowballed. And if she lost, it would just be, I mean.
But lots of criticism that not enough has been done in this period, this so-called zombie government. But we are told that, you know, behind closed doors, that Nadeem Zahawi's working away. The Chief Secretary to the Treasury's also come up with a plan for both of them, whoever wins.
But Isabel, that's not the point. The point is, but the point is, there's 7 weeks of blankness. There is nobody making public statements.
It's a mistake.
And so if Nadeem Zahawi is working away, we have got to be informed because people are frightened and there is a complete vacuum.
In fairness, you know, she comes in, presumably she's winning on Monday, in office from Tuesday, and she's going to take a couple of weeks before she comes out with her fiscal event. But she could turn around and say to everyone, it's OK, I've got this under control in 3 weeks' time. We should wait, shouldn't we, to see what she has to say?
Well, I want her to say it on Monday. Is she going to say it on Monday?
No, because she can't, because it's ultimately, if you want her to say it on Monday, what you get is you'll get a plan drawn up by her campaign team rather than the Treasury.
Right.
And I would personally rather that she takes the time to have the plan.
The Treasury have been working during the summer.
Precisely, but she currently doesn't have access to the full might of the civil service because she's not Prime Minister. And so I think it's reasonable that she takes a couple of weeks to make sure that that plan is actually drawn up by...
What are we thinking? Possibly third week in September?
Probably, yeah. Now,
Dear God, are you telling me that the UK public have now got to wait another 3 weeks before they know what this plan is to get us through winter?
Probably, because the alternative is simply that you have a plan drawn up by 5 of her interns. Yeah, precisely. Ultimately, it is a problem that the contest has been this long and the delay is not good. But if you want a good policy, you really do need it drawn up by the full might of government, not by some 25-year-olds on her campaign team.
Hear what you're saying, Henry. Stay there, my friend. I'd like now to go to the opposition, the Shadow Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. That's Jonathan Reynolds, MP. Jonathan, good morning to you. Taking part in this. Good morning. It just beggars belief. It beggars belief, you know. I'm not sitting here supporting your party or whatever. I'm simply saying, who the heck is in charge of this country while Boris Johnson's dressing up as pretending to be a policeman yesterday? So we've got this lad here from Conservative Home, Henry Hill, telling us that, and for very good reasons, that we may not hear a plan being announced from the leader, whoever that may be, for another 3 weeks.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with your assessment of that, as you might expect. I mean, I think the contest for the new Prime Minister would have been indulgent at this length in relatively benign times, but in the kind of crisis that we are in, it's frankly unforgivable. I thought Henry was very honest and very fair, but I mean, a lot of the conversation has been about the impact on households, quite rightly, and people desperately need to know we will get through the winter, hence our policy of freezing the cap as it is. But, for businesses who aren't covered by the cap, they're getting these new higher bills, these extreme higher bills right now, and they need some relief. And unless they're given some hope for the future, I'm afraid there is a real prospect of businesses simply shutting up shop, going out of business, with massive implications for employment, for tax revenue, and of course for the people who run those businesses who've not had an easy few years at all.
Okay,
So I just cannot believe
a blind man
we're
on a
talking about the
galloping
middle of
horse
September
can
before even
see.
announcing anything. Don't
Look,
forget,
Jonathan, wait a minute. So basically, let's get to the point. What are you proposing?
Well, we need some immediate help for those businesses now. So the starting point should be cutting business rates. We would increase the threshold for small business rates, relief to £25,000. So you're immediately getting help and hope to people that there will be some relief on the bills they've got to pay. For energy-intensive businesses, this is very important. We've got a fund in our plans with the windfall tax for £1 billion of support in a relief fund for those. If you think about that, the real danger there is if you look at, say, the fertiliser plants in this country, they're not running. They can't afford to run. So you're putting into next year the inflation, the cost of food going up even further because they can't operate because fertiliser will therefore be more expensive next year. So you've got to get some help to all businesses. You've got to focus specifically on energy intensives. But as well as that, of course, we wouldn't have gone ahead with that large rise to national insurance, which alone was a bill of around £7 billion for British businesses in terms of employers' national insurance. So they need some immediate help now. And I don't see why some sort of announcement like that couldn't be made now, given people surely recognise the scale of the crisis.
Just would like to just come back to Henry Hill, who's sitting here and he's very sympathetic, I think, towards Rishi here, the man behind the national insurance rise. And you heard Jonathan saying there, look, Labour would not go ahead with this, but Sunak still says that he would implement that.
Yeah, I don't personally support the rise, but I think Rishi's point is, the NHS is under huge pressure. The inflation is eroding public sector budgets. You need something to pay for that NHS rise, otherwise you're just going to have to borrow it. And so the whole point of the national insurance increase is it was supposed to be hypothecated directly to the NHS budget.
But isn't Jonathan Reynolds saying that they would fund this through the windfall tax? Is that not an option that could be extended? Because at the moment it's quite a limited windfall tax
Well, I mean, they're funding that through the windfall tax. They're also funding, apparently, a freeze of the energy price cap through the windfall tax. Freezing the energy price cap is the most expensive way of doing it because you subsidise demand. So a windfall tax is good, but it can only fund so much because it's a one-off tax, and I think Labour maybe end up spending more of it than they bring in.
Okay, let's give Jonathan the chance to come back on that point then. I mean, it's very easy to spend this windfall tax time and again. Do you think that you have fully costed cutting this national insurance rise? Because, we can't really, as a country, afford to borrow anymore, can we? We're just kicking the problem down the road for future generations.
Well, just to be clear on that, Isabel, so the windfall tax is part of the funding for freezing energy bills, freezing the cap as it is. The national insurance rise is something slightly different. What we oppose is, first of all, that money was supposed to be for social care, and as Henry correctly said, actually isn't. It initially goes to the health service. And for funding for the health service and social care, we don't believe it's correct to simply raise that money from working people. If you're going to raise money for public services, as you need to do, that should also come from people who get income from equity, from property, from landlords. Simply putting it just on working people, we believe is unfair and unsustainable. So we'd have a different solution, a broader tax base for that. The windfall tax specifically is about funding that freeze in energy bills for everybody so that people can get through the winter. Because frankly, otherwise, I can't see a way through it.
Yeah, fine. Look, finally, because we are running out of time, your thoughts on Sizewell C? Some speculation Boris Johnson could pull a bit of a rabbit out of the hat on his last week in office as Prime Minister. Something of a legacy move for the future, something you'd support?
Well, yes, we support new nuclear. We believe that has got to be an essential part of the system. We're particularly keen on small modular reactors. So I think I particularly want to know, in any nuclear project, you've got to know what is the cost, what is the price you're able to get at. That's what I'd want to know before I agreed on any business case. But in principle, yes, we support new nuclear and new nuclear at that site.
Jonathan, just a couple of things I want to know. One is, you would increase small business rates relief. You put that up. There's nobody doubting what you're saying in terms of the pressures on small businesses, but you would put that up to about 25k. But tell me, who loses out on that? Where does business relief go to? Does it go to, where do business rates go? Central government or local authorities? And my point I'm trying to make is if they don't go to local authorities, then local services would suffer, would they not?
No, we correct that. So we raise the revenue instead, and by raising what's called the digital services tax, that's a tax on the revenues of online search engines and marketplaces. Now, business rates are slightly complicated. There are some parts of the country where it is devolved to a city region and that money then goes to local services. So the government could make that up by increasing digital services tax. In other places, simply local authorities collect that money, then it goes to central government and they then redistribute it across the country. But we're very confident there'd be no impact on local services. We'd get the revenue forgone through raising that threshold from an increase in digital services tax, and therefore there wouldn't be any impact on service level funding at all.
Okay, at least we know where you stand. You're making that loud, you're making it proud, and you're offering support for small businesses which don't have these caps. A scary one I've heard this morning is that hospitals around the land could face an increase of £2 million a month in their energy bills. Now, surely that's something that we cannot allow to come out of existing clinical budgets, which would mean cuts in services, operations, cuts in staff for the National Health Service. £2 million a month per hospital in the land, increased energy.
Yes, well, that's an absolutely fair point, and I think it'd be true, unfortunately, across much of the public sector. Schools as well, when schools go back, will face similar problems. I would simply say one thing I think is slightly different for the argument I'm putting forward around businesses is, I mean, obviously businesses are essential for the people they employ, for the services and goods they provide, but they are also our tax base. So unless we are able to make sure businesses themselves can get through this crisis, well, frankly, there may be a wider impact on public service funding in future. So I don't in any way diminish or accept fully the point you're making about big elements of public service, hospitals, schools, and so on. But I think right now we've also got to have a message of hope for the future for businesses and some real measures we can implement straight away that would make their lives better.
Yeah, thanks for making the distinction on that. Thanks for pointing that out. Jonathan Reynolds is the Shadow Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. He's putting forward Labour's philosophy on helping small businesses there. What do you think? Join in the discussion on that this morning. Jonathan, say goodbye to you. Thank you very much indeed. He's live from Stalybridge.
Yeah, and our thanks to Henry Hill as well from Conservative Home. Thank you. Let's bring you up to date on the latest headlines this hour at 7:18. The Prime Minister is expected to deliver a speech today on the country's energy future. It comes amid widespread speculation that the government will give the sign-off for the Sizewell C nuclear plant in Suffolk.
The charity Medical Justice has called for the government to abandon its plan to send migrants to Rwanda and free those awaiting removal. Doctors with the charity have found that the mental health of detainees has been severely impacted by the threat of removal to Rwanda. They say the detained are suffering from conditions such as PTSD and depression.
The NHS has called for volunteers as it relaunches the COVID-19 booster programme ahead of the winter months. The initiative will target a total of 26 million people, including those clinically at risk and people aged 50 and over. Now, it has been a terrible summer for travel for many people, whether it's cancellation strikes, lost luggage, whatever it might be. Airlines have been struggling to cope. However,
for a lot of you have been saying, right, the Scoots, there's kids everywhere at airports. I couldn't be bothered travelling. Everything's too expensive. I'm going to lose my luggage. My flight's going to be delayed or whatever. This actually could be a very, very good time and a less costly time to travel. Have a listen to this as we talk to Nikki Kelvin. Nikki, good morning to you. Nikki is the head of Point Sky UK. So, some good news as regards travel.
It's feeling better now. It has been a summer of chaos, and there's a twofold thing here. Airports, airlines are better stuffed up. They're definitely not fully stuffed yet, so I still think there's a way to go there. But some things have been enforced, like the passenger caps at Heathrow. BA have cancelled another 10,000 flights in the winter schedule, and these things, whilst they've affected those passengers, it does mean that for those that are travelling, things are easier. The airports are quieter. They can cope with the demand, and of course, demand is slightly less. Now kids have gone back to school, and so that period where people are forced to go away because if they want to go away with the kids, obviously it has to happen in school holidays.
But for those lucky enough not to be caught in that rut for that whatever 15-year period of children in school, a lot of our viewers, perhaps some of the older generation, able to take a holiday from now. And there's some absolutely winning deals out there. You were looking up online how cheap flights to Lisbon in Portugal for next week are, for example.
Yeah, you can find flights now for less than 20 quid one way. That's how cheap it is. I mean, my big tip there is Google Flights, super easy to use, and you're able to pull up the whole month of September and a map of Europe, or the world actually, but if you're trying to go to Europe, and it shows you all the destinations on the dates you want to go, and you can just click on the different options, and that was showing me all across Europe flights for less than £20. You can go further afield, places like Malta for about £40. So there's some really good deals out there. BA Holiday Finder as well is one where you can look at an entire month's worth of holidays to lots of different places. You can select whether you want to fly economy or business, what kind of hotel you want to stay in, and there's some brilliant deals to be had now.
That would tie you to BA, though, specifically, presumably. How are they faring at the moment? Because there was widespread criticism earlier in the year that they were becoming a bit of a budget airline, and it wasn't quite the BA experience people were used to.
That's right. Well, interestingly, British Airways and EasyJet were some of the worst for delays and cancellations, and one of the best out there was Ryanair, which I think surprised a lot of people. The balance is coming back a little bit now. Again, like I said, because of all those cancellations, they've managed to get back on top of things. And my recent personal experience of flying various different airlines is there's none that are terrible at the moment. At the Points Guide, we actually just did a report on the best and worst for delays at the moment, and it is other airlines. Wizz Air and TUI came out bottom there with the worst delays. And so you can look at reports like that to see which airlines are doing better than others, and maybe make decisions on your September travel so you get a bit of a better experience.
So there you go, there's some positivity out there. And look, are there fewer, am I right in thinking there's fewer bags going missing and horror stories like that? I mean, there was a stage just before, right at the beginning of the school summer holidays, where it was all we were talking about. You were in here having to put traces on your suitcases or only taking hand luggage. But we haven't really been hearing those stories for a while.
I think maybe people got bored of talking about it.
It's still happening.
It's definitely better, but my top recommendation there would be don't check a bag if you don't have to. I know it's a very contentious issue. I think you felt like that was impossible.
Did, but I went via Gatwick, just came back last week from my summer holidays, and I can't fault it. It was easy peasy, and everything went through no problem. We even took our car seats for the children in oversized luggage, so and it all was straight through. And I've actually read an article, I think it was in a comment piece in the Times last week, which said that Gatwick was almost the model of airports at the moment, of how they should be run. Manchester and Heathrow should take note, which I thought was interesting.
Well, when it's good, and I'm glad you had a good experience. Yeah. If you can not check bags right now, I wouldn't. And if you have to, I think things are a little bit better. But if you can avoid it, do it. Also means you don't have to wait for your bags to come out. You straight out the airport at the other end.
Well, you always have great tips. Any more thoughts?
That's a rubbish tip. What woman do you know wouldn't have a bag getting onto a plane? I do not, I swear to you, I'm being serious. If you go in a week's holiday or 2 weeks holiday, who the heck, except a backpacker, would not have a suitcase?
Well, get the biggest carry-on wheelie that you can have. Plus,
we went on EasyJet, and my handbag was on the cusp of being too big.
You do have to pay for the wheelies on EasyJet now. One of those, plus a duffel bag, because you can sneak a bit more in there. And I'll give you one more really good tip. We were just talking about this earlier. Toiletries is a problem. Lots of people want to take their big toiletries, good stuff. If you go to a place like Boots in the airport, it can be super expensive. But you can actually order, click and collect from home, go through security, you pay high street prices, not the airport prices, pick up all your boot stuff in the airport.
That is wizard.
I've heard. Yeah.
Do you like that one?
I do like that one.
The other thing I often do think is, people think they go to Spain or they go to Portugal, whatever, how would I ever get shaving foam there or aspirin? You know, as if they're going to Outer Mongolia or whatever. There are chemists, there are pharmacists in all these places, and sometimes I think, just leave it, buy it there at the other side or whatever. But we've got to take the hassle and the trouble out of travel. I don't know when it'll happen, but really interesting to hear.
I don't think it'll ever go back to the heydays.
Lovely, good.
Anyway,
here's the weather.
Thank you.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather updates. A dry and a fine day today. A little chilly out there this morning in places, but overall by this afternoon, a bit warmer than yesterday. However, the weather is on the change. Much wetter conditions heading our way. Low pressure approaching from the south and the northwest, squeezing away this area of high pressure. But that high is still dominant today, so as I said, most places are dry. An easterly breeze bringing again a cool feel on some North Sea coasts and a bit more cloud across eastern England. 1 or 2 showers here and there too. But for the vast majority, it's dry, it's bright, with some spells of sunshine. We will see some showers heading up towards the Channel Isles, and the sunshine perhaps turning a little hazy across the south as the cloud starts to increase. But temperatures here still getting up into the mid-20s. Touch warmer than yesterday for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Many urban areas up to 20 Celsius here. Through this evening, I think we'll start to see a few more showers, initially just spreading up from France over the Channel into southern parts of England, but 1 or 2 more over northeast England, the cloud increasing across the northwest also. And by morning time, we'll see a few showers over the Midlands and into parts of Wales. A relatively warm night across the south, 15, 16 in towns and cities here, and a warmer night for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but still down to single figures in rural areas here. And a bright start here to Friday with some sunny spells, but we are going to see both those weather fronts we talked about, one coming up from the south, one coming in from the northwest, increasing the amounts of cloud and bringing more and more showers by the afternoon. Much of eastern England, good part of northern England will stay dry still, and even further south, if you're after rainfall, Friday's showers are still going to be very hit and miss, so no guarantee. But we are looking at much wetter conditions for all as we head into the weekend. Those 2 weather systems joining together to form one area of low pressure that's going to last through the weekend, bringing all of us some spells of rain. Goodbye.
The annual.
Do you know what the largest joint in the body is? Do you?
The largest joint, is it the hip?
No.
Oh, what is it?
Go again.
The largest joint. The shoulder. Which one's that?
It's in your nether regions.
Oh, right, how do you say that? My pelvis.
No.
Oh, gosh, the man's bit. Oh.
No, unless it touches his knee. It's the knee. The knee is the largest joint in the body. And
Your nether regions, you weirdo.
What?
Anyway.
And the knee is the largest joint in the body and one of the most complex. I'm just reading a whole chapter on my knees here, right?
Right, okay.
So we've got in about 15, 20 minutes, James Davis, his new book, Body, is out today. And he's telling you why we should all be trained to know our bodies and to resist pain. So you don't get to a situation where you're in pain and chronic pain.
I've heard so much about James Davies over the last 8 months we've been working together. Oh, 9 months now, it's September. You're a big fan, so it'd be great to meet him in
He
person.
constantly rubs my body. And he gets paid for that.
Poor man.
That's what he has to do.
Poor man.
People will be queuing up for
I'll
that.
be interested to hear what sort of patient you are, although I suspect to know the answer.
He does Joe Wicks's body,
Does
he does
he?
David Beckham's body, and he does my body.
Aw.
Yes, that song. Your body, my body, everybody's... What's that song?
We lost the plot.
Anyway, we're going cycling now.
We are. The Royal British Legion fundraiser, Pedal to Paris, has indeed kicked off this morning. They cycle all the way to the French capital to raise funds for ex-serving army personnel. It began in London this morning. Over 200 participants took place, hoping to reach the finish line in Paris by Monday.
Well, Rosie Wright was one of them.
She's
Indeed.
done this herself.
That's the whole point. She has actually done it. So let's go. Start line, Eltham Palace, South East London. Earlier this morning, this is what happened.
Well, the excitement is mounting in Eltham Palace. Over 200 riders are preparing to pedal 285 miles all the way to Paris. Let's find out why. Teresa from the Royal British Legion joins me now. A lot of preparations gone into today.
Absolutely. The Royal British Legion, it's our 26th time, so we've had a lot of experience, but we couldn't do it without all these amazing people turning out to raise money for us. And, you know, we are the only ride where they close the Champs-Élysées. They only do that for the Tour de France and the Royal British Legion. So it's an incredible arrival in Paris for these guys, but they've got an awful lot of pedalling to do before they get there.
Well, let's speak to one of those pedallers. Teresa, thank you very much. He had to come over with his bike because they are literally about to set off. Why are you doing this?
Well, I did the support crew last year as I'm a community fundraiser for the Royal British Legion, and I saw it was a challenge. Everyone seemed to enjoy it. It's an excellent event that the Royal British Legion organised, and I thought I've just got to do it.
I've just heard behind me they said we're going to get rolling shortly. How much preparation's gone into today?
Months. When I signed up on the coach, I was actually still drunk when I signed up for it, but I didn't even have a bike, so I had to start from scratch. But it's been good. It's been very good.
And just tell me why you're doing it.
Well, as I said, I work for the Royal British Legion, and it's an excellent cause. It supports the armed forces community, past and present, and it's worth supporting. And also, it's for remembrance as well.
And you're ex-service yourself?
Yes, especially this is the 40th year of the Falklands War. So when we stop off at some of the villages and have a few, remembrance services, it will be time to reflect on, things that have happened in the past.
Good luck. Anything you're nervous about?
Hills.
Yeah, that makes sense. We'll get those quads going. Thank you very much, Yanti, for speaking to me. Teresa as well. Look at all of this. They're getting their final sort of briefings, information, and imminently they will be pushing off all the way to Paris.
There you are. And think of the joints involved in that.
Yeah, a lot of knee action.
James Davis, he's the man that will advise them on that. Have you got anything wrong with your body at the minute?
Yeah, loads. Achy back. Yeah.
Is it high, middle or low?
Lower back.
Oh, you could be like me.
Yeah.
That's where my problem started.
No, this is too much detail, but my pelvis tips forward.
Does it?
So I need
is there any reason?
I need to...
Is there any reason?
Well, because I've got a big bottom, I think.
So do you walk like, like one of those little things that are like weather vanes? They're attract the little sort of pelicans or something, they rock.
What are you doing?
You've never seen those little things that rock? You don't know? Or do you sort of walk at a 45-degree angle?
Yes, and I need to do like a Pilates move to straighten my back.
Yes. Keep your core strong.
I can't be bothered with that.
Do all of that.
So get back.
Anyway, back pages, because we're into this... Oh, Paul Coyte's here. That's right.
Listen, I'm just enthralled. I'm just sitting with my mouth wide open.
Back pages of the papers, it is transfer day.
To his knee, Eamonn, to his knee. Yes.
Right. The Telegraph previews, well, they say it's going to be a busy deadline day. Chelsea set to spend 150 million quid, they reckon, on last-minute deals today. Paul will have all the details on that very shortly. All Hal, City's king, Manchester City's new star striker, what a buy he's been, scored another hat-trick, Eric Haaland there. 6-0 over Forest last night for City. Daily Star looks at unstoppable, they say he is Erling Haaland, but they also praise Liverpool's Carvalho for his winning strike against Newcastle United. So it was a really good night in football tonight. I'm off to Leicester tonight.
Oh, how are you feeling about that?
Well, Leicester at the bottom of the table. I'm feeling quite good.
So you're choosing your fixtures very carefully at the moment. You went to Brentford thinking, we'll be all right at Brentford and lost 4-0. So now...
From a shame I did.
Okay, so right. Leicester may be all right. Yeah, no, there was some great games last night. And the thing is, and I'm sure you'll probably agree with me when it came to Liverpool, 98th minute equaliser.
Yeah.
There was 5 minutes added on the clock.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, not that being a Manchester United fan going back, you would know about anything about games going on with Fergie time, but it seems like it's almost like Jurgen Klopp time. 98th minute, so they get the winner 2-1 against Newcastle. Arsenal top of the shop still, 100% start against Aston Villa, so they beat them 2-1. Aston Villa, you know what, Steven Gerrard is going to be in trouble if they don't start winning.
I think the knives are out for Steven Gerrard. I mean, it's not that it's a big win. I mean, Arsenal top of the table, they have a 100% record.
They have.
So far.
They have.
But it's a narrow defeat, but I think the knives are out for Steven Gerrard.
Defeat's a defeat, yeah. And then you talk about Erling Haaland. I mean, this guy's unbelievable.
He is unbelievable.
Another
He is
hat-trick.
unbelievable.
Another hat-trick.
You know when they say 100 million quid for someone like him, whatever
Yeah.
it is, you would pay 200 million quid
I
for
think
him.
you would.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what's great about him is that he really is that old-fashioned striker. That's what they've needed as a striker. He's scoring all the goals from in the box, but it's that literally that fox in the box.
Yeah.
It's the old Lineker. It's that you've got to be in the right place at the right time, and it's his movement off the ball is unbelievable.
He's a big brute though as well. You wouldn't want to defend against him.
You really would.
I mean, we have a 5'9" central defender at Man United.
Yeah.
I mean, putting him against him, that'll be an interesting one.
It will be an interesting one. There's something to look forward
Look,
to.
it is transfer deadline day.
Yeah, it
and
is.
We do have to say, you and I are going to be talking to the legend that is Harry Redknapp in about an hour's time.
Yep.
And Harry's seen a lot of deadline days in his time. What's going on at the minute that's interesting you?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I think everybody's going to be involved. We've seen transfer deadline days in the past that have been a bit of a damp squib and closes at 11 o'clock tonight, and we all sit there waiting and thinking something's going to come in at the last minute, and it doesn't. But it's been busy, and I think it's going to continue to be busy. We've got Manchester United and Anthony, which we've spoken about before, from Ajax for 85 million. That deal will finally be done
We'll
today.
go through. I mean, you know, I'm happy enough. We've spent enough. We can't really complain about we have. I think Chelsea will be very, very busy today.
Yeah, I think they will. There's another player from Ajax, Edson Alvarez, expected to go for £40 million. See, Ajax is where, obviously, Erik ten Hag came from.
Yeah.
And often people will raid Ajax for great young players.
Yeah.
And it's happening again. And if you're an Ajax fan, you'd be thinking, you know, well, every time we seem to have someone decent, they go to the Premier League. Obviously, it's the nature of the beast. And that's the way Ajax run. But Edson Alvarez is the latest one that's looks like he's leaving out Ajax.
Okay.
Going to Chelsea. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's going to be heading there as well.
Well, look, we're going to get tales. We're going to get Harry's memories of transfer deadline day. Why is there a transfer deadline day? What way did business used to be done?
Yeah.
That's where we're going to remind people of all of that.
And also how it works. I mean, what happens?
Yeah.
You pick up the phone and say, I'm interested in this guy. How do we get it over the line? So it's a very busy
Lawyers,
times.
agents, all those sort of things.
It's very complex.
20 past 8, you, me, Harry Redknapp
Sounds good.
as well. What do you think about the window today? What do you think?
If there's people like me who find it really boring, don't worry, because we're going to be laughing at Eamonn shortly to talk about his aches and pains. And we're going to be talking about dating apps later, so there's lots of other things. We do the full spectrum of the rainbow.
We do.
I don't know if that's the right
And we
stuff.
do the full spread of the newspapers with
We
Liz
do.
Kershaw and Cundy Barker right after this short break.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 8. Time to go through the papers this morning. We're joined by the broadcaster, Liz Kershaw, and property expert, Kunle Barker. Welcome to both of you. Kunle, let's start with you. You've chosen a story about the news that we were waking people up to yesterday morning about Mikhail Gorbachev's passing. And today, the Kremlin failing to be clear whether or not they will give Gorbachev a full state funeral, which seems such an insult if that is what happens.
I think that's exactly the word I use, an insult, based on his presence in history, presiding over...
the presence in history hasn't been good for them, has it?
Well,
we were the Soviet Union, now we're not anymore.
Well, yeah, but, the fall of I remember, the fall of the Berlin Wall in '89, and that reunited families, brought freedom to a part of Germany and reunited a country. And I think in a really worrying time, I think we forget, I mean, we're getting back into these worrying times with Russia now, but we forget quite how worrying it was, the threat, this constant overbearing threat of a Cold War. And, he brought peace to the world in that sense. And, I think it's really interesting with Putin's snub as well, and saying that he not only will he not give him a state funeral, that he didn't release a statement for quite some time.
Well, look, I mean, Putin is in a war because of Gorbachev, really. The Soviet Union broke up under Gorbachev. Putin's trying to get it back together again, and he's invaded Ukraine as part of all that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's a really interesting sort of look into the guy's personality. He was 37 when the Berlin Wall fell, and he was in Dresden in a Stasi centre. And there were all these people around, and everybody was really worried, and nobody wanted to go out and speak to the crowd because they thought they were going to come in and basically kill them. And they sent Putin out, who was he was one of the youngest people there at the time, but my senior youngest person, and they sent him out to talk to them. And I think that had a real effect on his views, and in a weird way, you can see why he's
ashamed by that, wasn't he?
He was ashamed by that. Yeah, he was. He was a traditional, staunch sort of Russian USSR person.
It's just the parallels with Hitler are so stark when you make those kind of comments about the shaping of these leaders, and you sort of see how they ended up with these extreme views. And it's not the first time he has been compared, but no surprise really that he's not necessarily doing the right thing when it comes to Gorbachev.
So we go to the Daily Telegraph, Liz,
this is interesting.
with you. It would be very interesting if you didn't store the papers so far away from me. But anyway, the story, it's front page of the Telegraph, and what's it saying?
Well, surprise, surprise, children whose parents are together and remain together, particularly if they're actually married, do better in life. They do better in the GCSEs. By the time they're 25, they're earning more money. So broken homes cause poverty is the headline
it's so simplified, isn't it? I mean, what if those people are married but really miserable, arguing the whole time?
Well, yeah, I agree. And, what about parents like I and the father of my children who've done 30 years of co-parenting, and we all sat around the table on Tuesday night, aunties and everything, and we had a party for our 28-year-old who just likes it so much he won't leave home. Do you want your own flat, Joe? No, why not? I like it here. I mean, I was from a split home. I had to witness my parents fighting, and to the extent that they were on more than one occasion, an ambulance was called, the police came round.
Right.
13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
It's really awful.
You know, Liz,
and I was glad when they split up.
Yeah. A lot of this is about state control, again, isn't it? Because if we put families together, we keep units together, that's that in that little box, you can't stray from that, whatever. And the point I want to make is, I honestly, being Mr. Eamonn here, in 50 years' time, I think they'll look back and say, you know, in 2022, they expected, would you hear this for a joke, 2 people to get married, stay together for the rest of their life.
I agree, because I always said, we don't need to get H. Samuels involved. Why do we have to register with the government to be able to live together and live and breed? Why do we have to ask their permission to separate? You know, if we want to split our assets, we do it amicably. We don't need some government departments through the courts to tell us. I think you're right. I think people aren't getting married not because they've lost the sense of romance, but because they, you know, we're all anarchists in a way.
I think it's a really good point, because I think what the government have done here is, soundbite politics. They're confusing marriage with being a good parent or being a family. And you don't necessarily have to be married or even together to be good parents. And so I think that's the interesting part of that story is, about eating together, talking together, doing interesting things with your children and being a family.
Being a family, but I suspect if you say, as Eamonn, if how many years you said it would be 10, 15, 20 years,
15,
and it's all single parents raising kids.
I've never believed...
I suspect it'll be the women, and I know you won't like me saying this, but I suspect it'll be the women who are trying to shoulder the lion's share of that.
Because men do nothing.
I'm not saying
men
that, Eamonn. I'm not saying that, but most women work...
You say it every day.
Listen, kids, I've always thought, the other thing is about getting married. If I were to get married now, I think I could manage to promise somebody I'd stick with them 10, 15 years. But if I were to... At 23, I said to my boyfriend out to university, we both went to Leeds, but I said to my boyfriend, how can I stand there and say that I will love you for the next 60 years?
See,
impossible.
It's like buying a car.
Yeah.
Right. I think that...
Oh, gosh.
This is going to be good, isn't it?
So depressing.
This is going to be
It could
really
be
good.
all up to date. It could have all the latest gadgets in 2022. But by the time you get to 2027, it's a bit dated looking.
Classic.
It's a bit rusty.
No,
it's a bit
classic,
old-fashioned.
It's vintage.
You want something a bit racier.
It's got memories, history.
I think it's wonderful. I think that you meet people. I think to be a couple from till death us do part from your very early 20s or something is a real gift. I think it's unusual, I think it's special, and I think they're blessed. What this is about, though, is about how it affects children, the parenting. And you might not have a partner for life, but you have children are for life, not just for Christmas. And even as an adult, my parents' bitter relationship has had an impact on me, on their grandchildren. So if you can cooperate and co-parent, that's
I think
that's
the
what
lesson
this...
in all of this is decide who you breed with extremely carefully.
And offer a trade-in after 7 years. Part exchange or
Where am I?
anything,
I think I've just hit the 7-year mark. So
guys,
where am I?
thank you both very much indeed.
Is that it?
Yes, because we've got to look after
really?
our bodies now. It is that we're going to talk about our bodies and how to maintain them and all that sort of thing. After we bring you up to date with what's happening news-wise.
The last 2 contenders in the Tory leadership contest made their final pitches to party members ahead of the results being announced on September the 5th. Liz Truss focusing on tax cuts, with Rishi Sunak reiterating his plan is the right one, he believes, to tackle inflation.
Think tanks warned that the new Prime Minister should be prepared for the biggest squeeze in living standards for a century. A report by the Resolution Foundation shows disposable incomes are on par to fall by 10% this year and next. They say a number of people living in absolute poverty is set to rise by 3 million to 14 million unless economic forecasts change.
And the Prince of Wales has guest-edited the British Afro-Caribbean newspaper The Voice, calling for unity through diversity. In a special edition for its 40th anniversary, Prince Charles speaks about his vision to tackle racial injustice and unfairness.
Now, it pains me to introduce our next guest because usually when he's working on my body, it is nothing but pain. He brings out a new book today. It is called Body by James Davis, who joins us now in the studio. And my friend, when you're not my friend, how often do I swear at you?
Oh, I think it's every sentence.
Every sentence.
And I'll just chuckle.
But I do listen to what you have to say. James's book, The Body, is about healing, resetting and restoring your body. And your view is, they call you the Sherlock Holmes of the body, because you get to the bottom. A lot of people will be suffering pain.
Yeah.
Pain, and chronic pain is an awful thing. But you're saying that it shouldn't get to that stage. We should be able to know our bodies more.
100%, because we're always in a rush. We don't think about us. We are the last people that we think about. And we have to just look at the small clues. So it can just be a 1 out of 10 pain. It can be an ache that's been there for like years. Then all of a sudden it turns into a 9 out of 10. And then we're like, where the hell did this come from? So this book takes the reader on a journey to kind of find these clues quick and do something about it.
And is every pain reversible? Do you reckon you can fix most pains? If you leave it too long, is the damage done?
That's a good question.
Thanks.
So very good question. I just feel that you have to do all you can to avoid surgery. So there's so many tools that you can do. So on Eamonn, I do cupping, acupuncture. I get the elbow in the bum, you know.
Yeah. Elbow in the bum. Have you ever had the elbow in the bum? maybe we'll get a session after.
Let me know. I am free next Wednesday if you want an elbow in the bum.
That is quite.
But I tell you what he does to me. The dreaded thing he does to me, and you know this man is a genius. It is, but he brings out his needles, right? Needles. It's always needles, and I hate the needles bit. But the other thing he does, Isabel, is ice baths, right?
I hate ice baths. Sorry.
You hate ice baths?
Yeah, I don't like being.
You have
cold.
offended me.
No,
So
but I would do it if you think it would fix me up, because I do get back pain, and I think it's something that's going to get worse
Well,
as I
I
get
tell you,
older.
Isabel, it's better than an elbow in the bum. It is. So
listen, I've been trying to get Eamonn to do ice bath for a number of years.
Well,
now.
we do foot baths. We do ice foot baths.
You are a pro now, because
Yes.
seriously, there's no hesitation. The first time when he did it was like, I don't want to do this, James. I'm going to take my feet up now. But the last day, it was 2 minutes in the ice bath.
Yes.
Sorry, in the
the foot bath,
The
You
foot
have to be
bath.
careful with those, don't you, though? I always think, do you need a defibrillator if you're doing the old ice baths?
You were specifically referring to me. Oh, you think?
No, I'm thinking...
I do cold showers as well now because of
It can be a
him.
shock to the heart. My mum had heart attacks last year.
Yeah.
And she went for a swim in the sea in the UK in June. And it was I was filming it because I was like, she loves the sea swim. And I was like, Mum, hurry up. This is like a 2-minute video. She goes, I've been told I can't go quickly in changing temperatures because it can...
See, you could be killing me.
Bless her, no, but if you listen to the wise words of Wim Hof,
Yes.
so it really helps with your cardiovascular system. It's seriously, there's so many benefits.
Okay.
And if you look at Iceland, they do it a lot, and there's loads of scientific research that indicates that it does help.
That's why they call it Iceland.
Iceland,
'Cause it's
exactly.
very cold. They have a lot of ice available up there.
Is Eamonn one of your wimpiest or bravest celebrity
I'm not
clients?
even his
'Cause
most
I know
famous. I'm not even.
David Beckham's on your list there, Joe Wicks, Eva
Yeah.
Mendes, who else? Kylie Minogue.
Yep.
Batman.
Does he fuss the most?
So I would say, Eamonn, it's been a journey, because when I first met Eamonn, he was in a lot of pain, constant pain. So I'm really proud of you.
No,
so I get to this stage.
belittle it. It's been
Seriously.
a journey.
Shouldn't belittle
I know, I'm only
Yeah.
teasing.
But the thing is, Eamonn's learned a lot about his body now. So seriously, I'm so proud of you, of your progress, and I know that we've still got a long way to go.
You and I think, and this book, it's a manual in a way. It's almost like a textbook. And I think, in school, there's things, think of what you would save in terms of resources in the National Health Service, for instance, if we actually knew what was doing our bodies harm, how to maintain it, how to keep it in. And I'm not just talking about going to the gym or whatever here.
Yeah. So I feel that people don't know how to express if they're in pain. And you look at the NHS, the doctors, or any type of medical person, they are working hard and there's limited time. So in this book, I do teach them the terminology to get their points across, because there's different layers, textures to pain, the intensity, the character. So hopefully in this book, they can find answers and go to a GP or someone such as myself and tell them exactly what's going on.
I want to ask you about the royal family. I wouldn't dare to ask you if you've worked with any, but I know that Her Majesty has publicly talked about her mobility issues recently, and so much so that today we're told the future Prime Minister on Monday has to go up to Balmoral. Obviously she's in her 90s, but, we all face mobility issues, I suppose, as we get older.
And face age, yeah.
And ageing population.
So can you still exercise? And can you still do things?
And top tips for Her Majesty.
If you're that old.
You could even dare go as far as that.
Well, the biggest thing, so I've travelled across the whole world, and I've been fortunate till I do it. And there are some countries that you can be 90-year-old men and women, and they're squatting. And the reason why I'm saying this, like getting down really, really low and moving around, running marathons and things. And the reason why I'm saying this is that as a nation, we don't move.
Yeah.
And we slowly seize up.
Yeah.
So it's those clues again. If we don't move, we're going to seize up.
Are you saying we need to squat more?
We need to squat more, and we need to just move around. So the best thing that I talk about in this book is multitasking. So we like to watch Netflix and our favourite TV shows.
Do it standing
so while we're doing this, we can do squats
Good
on
idea.
the sofa. We can jog on the spot. So it doesn't have to be an hour, because I think as a nation we think that we have to go to the gym and punish ourselves. But it can just be a little dose every single day. And that's clear.
Well, look, the maintenance of your body, why you should never get to the stage where pain is saying something is wrong. It's there, and it's a book. It's out today, and it is called Body. It is by James Davis. So thank you very much.
As someone who has to work regularly with James, I feel your... with Eamonn even. I feel your pain, James.
I know, tell me about it. No,
well, I tell you, nothing wrong with you that an elbow in the bum wouldn't fix.
Yep.
So
I'm free next Wednesday, yeah?
He's free next Wednesday for that. I do also just want to say, before we just say goodbye to James, this man, when he was younger, suffered very, very badly from stammering. And he's now an advocate, and
Never guessed that.
He's connected to various charities, helping people with stammering. And as you say, Isabel, you would never guess it.
Idea.
And so, well done to you.
Thank you very much.
Well.
Yeah, I'm a vice patron of Stammer now, so it just means a lot, because I know there's loads of people struggling with a stammer, and I'm a covert stammer, which I learned. So kind of think of an iceberg analogy. I'm underneath, so you don't really see it.
Yeah.
So I hide it very, very well. But every time, even doing this, it's so exhausting. So I'm really proud that I'm able to even do this with you guys. And hopefully I can be a good example to those people that feel that they can't achieve their dreams. And in my first chapter, anything is possible. So hopefully I'm showing that today.
James,
Thank you.
brilliant
Thank
note
you.
to finish on.
James
Thank
Davis there. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be back. Maybe there's time during the break for
elbow in the bum.
I'm all right. I'm all right.
Back after this.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. A dry and a fine day today. A little chilly out there this morning in places, but overall by this afternoon, a bit warmer than yesterday. However, the weather is on the change. Much wetter conditions heading our way. Low pressure approaching from the south and the northwest, squeezing away this area of high pressure. But that high is still dominant today. So, as I said, most places are dry. An easterly breeze bringing, again, a cool feel on some North Sea coasts, and a bit more cloud across eastern England. 1 or 2 showers here and there too. But for the vast majority, it's dry, it's bright, with some spells of sunshine. We will see some showers heading up towards the Channel Isles, and the sunshine perhaps turning a little hazy across the south as the cloud starts to increase. But temperatures here still getting up into the mid-20s. Touch warmer than yesterday for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Many urban areas up to 20 Celsius here. Through this evening, I think we'll start to see a few more showers, initially just spreading up from France over the Channel into southern parts of England, but 1 or 2 more over northeast England, the cloud increasing across the northwest also. And by morning time, we'll see a few showers over the Midlands and into parts of Wales. A relatively warm night across the south, 15, 16 in towns and cities here, and a warmer night for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but still down to single figures in rural areas here. And a bright start here to Friday with some sunny spells, but we are going to see both those weather fronts we talked about, one coming up from the south, one coming in from the northwest, increasing the amounts of cloud and bringing more and more showers by the afternoon. Much of eastern England, good part of northern England will stay dry still, and even further south, if you're after rainfall, Friday's showers are still going to be very hit and miss, so no guarantee. But we are looking at much wetter conditions for all as we head into the weekend. Those 2 weather systems joining together to form one area of low pressure that's going to last through the weekend, bringing all of us some spells of rain. Goodbye.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Liz Truss rules out energy rationing, risking blackouts this winter at the final Conservative leadership hustings.
Good morning. It's just after 8 o'clock. It's Thursday, the 1st of September, would you believe? You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
If you've been watching or listening this morning, we thank you for your company. Leading the news for us is this.
The 12th and final hustings of the Conservative leadership election took place last night. Liz Truss promised no new taxes and ruled out energy rationing this winter. Rishi Sunak, meanwhile, refused to take any options off the table.
It comes as Buckingham Palace announces that the Queen will appoint the new Prime Minister from Balmoral instead of London. The break from royal tradition is due to the Queen's mobility issues.
New figures have revealed that the cost of living crisis could plunge 3 million more people into absolute poverty. The report from the Resolution Foundation warns that by next year, 1 in 5 people in Britain could be living below the breadline.
Transfer deadline day in football. The window closes at 11 o'clock tonight. We're going to be bringing you the biggest deals throughout the morning. And also we have got, with his memories of transfer deadline day, Harry Redknapp, 20 past 8 this morning. Question for Harry, or any discussions that you may want to get involved in, gbviews@gbnews.uk. You can tweet at GB News.
Oh, and we're also announcing one of our People's Champions today, which we like to do on a Thursday. If you know anyone that you think should be celebrated, don't forget you can send in your suggestions to our email address. It's there on the ticker for you with the title Breakfast People's Champion.
So let's take a look back at the final Conservative leadership hustings, which was last night. The race for number 10 is finally winding down. That's the last one, isn't it?
That's it, right? The last one, yeah. Liz Truss ruled out energy rationing and vowed not to introduce any new taxes, while Rishi Sunak said that nothing should be taken off the table. Let's take a look at some of the highlights.
We have seen crime go up. We have seen some appalling crimes committed. I'm afraid that too often women and girls in London are not able to go out for fear of crime, and I think that is wrong. And I will make sure our police are policing the streets and not policing Twitter.
Now, I've not chosen to say the things that people may want to hear. I've said the things that I believe our country needs to hear. And although it hasn't made my life easy, it is honest, and for me, that is what leadership is all about.
I supported the Rwanda scheme. We need to expand it to more countries, but I will also make sure we legislate so that we can't be overruled by the ECHR and we decide our policies about our borders.
So I introduced a windfall tax as Chancellor,
Yes.
and I'm glad that I did,
Would you
because
do it
it was
again?
the right thing to do. I don't actually know if Liz supports it or doesn't support it, but I think it is absolutely the right thing at a time when energy companies are making billions of pounds of profits because of a war. That's not right. And we should exceptionally tax those and help use those for people's bills.
The fact is, we should have made decisions years ago about nuclear power. We should be using more of the resources in the North Sea. We should be doing fracking in areas where local communities support it. And we should be moving forward to secure our supply.
If we can get 95% mortgages for young first-time buyers with a great credit history, then it won't take them decades to save up for the deposit, and your son can get on the housing ladder quicker, and so can 1 million more young people, because that's what a Conservative government should be delivering, and that's what I would love to do.
Well, whoever wins the leadership contest, the Queen is set to break with tradition by
appointing England's new Prime Minister from Balmoral. She's remaining there due to health concerns.
Well, since last autumn, the Queen, who's 96 years of age, has struggled with mobility issues. Royal commentator Jenny Bond now joining us to explain more with all of this. It's a break from tradition, Jenny, but, I mean, how significant do you see it overall?
I see it as a lovely breath of common sense. For goodness sake, asking a 96-year-old woman who has mobility issues to break her holiday and fly down to London to appoint the new Prime Minister was ridiculous, wasn't it? I know that it was mooted she would do so, but how much more sensible that a middle-aged man or woman, new Prime Minister, should fly up there and kiss the Queen's hands, though that's a little bit figurative. But I think it makes absolute sense. And I don't think we should get too overwrought about her health concerns. We know she has mobility issues. We know she's 96. We know her bones ache. And we know that it comes and goes, and that one morning she might wake up and feel pretty okay. And another morning she just can hardly move, in her own words. And so it was also to help the new Prime Minister sort out their diary, that it can be absolutely certain that they will be appointed by the Queen on Tuesday at Balmoral. There will be no changes to that.
Subtle shift, though, isn't there? You can't deny, Jenny Bond, that the royal family are sort of slowly moving away from the capital. We know that the Queen prefers Windsor Castle. We've just seen the Cambridges making their move that direction. Now we've got the Prime Ministers for the first time in royal history, you know, being, as you say, what's the technical term? Accepted by Her Majesty up in Balmoral. It is a subtle change.
Yes, appointed. She will appoint the Prime Minister. There is a subtle change, I suppose, but I think when we have a King Charles, if that's the name he chooses to take, he will be mostly based in London, probably at Buckingham Palace. But I think the more important change, I suppose, is the transition from the Queen to Prince Charles, which could have happened this time. I mean, she could have just said, look, I'm not feeling well enough, Charles, you do it. But do you know what? The Queen enjoys being Queen. She wants to continue to be the boss of that firm, in control as much as she can, and with whatever changes are necessary. And this was a necessary change.
What is the actual process? What's the formality of it, Jenny? So obviously, whoever wins the leadership election has to be there. Does the current Prime Minister have to be there as well?
Yeah, we can see Boris Johnson flying up there to say his farewell, to formally resign. And then the new Prime Minister, he or she, will be hot on the heels of Johnson. And they will go in, there'll be some pleasantries, and then there is what's called the kissing of hands. I don't think that is actually a slobbery great kiss anymore. I think it's just more a little airbrush kiss. It's a figurative thing. But the Queen will say, will you appoint a new government, and will invite he or she to form a new government. That invitation, I'm sure, will be accepted. And there we are. They are then Prime Minister. few more pleasantries, maybe a drink, maybe a chat. Maybe the Queen will offer her first words of encouragement. Constitutionally, she is allowed to encourage, to warn, and to be consulted by her prime ministers. And so there'll be a little bit of that, probably.
Yeah, because her heating bill is going to be huge, isn't it? She's got a lot of rooms and a lot of palaces. Look, we talk about Prime Minister Boris Johnson and whoever succeeds him flying up to visit Her Majesty, but the actual ins and outs of that quite interesting in themselves. Some speculation that they could fly up together, others that Boris Johnson will get the royal plane and the successor will take a commercial flight, and then they'll swap and the new Prime Minister will come down in the royal plane and Boris Johnson will be on EasyJet or whatever it is. Can you give us any intel on that?
I don't have any intel, but it'll all be vastly amusing and we'll all pick over it, won't we? Yes.
Well, we're going to be picking over the Sussexes, the Meghan and Harry entourage, fly into the country, I think, next week as well. What do we know? Will they be going to see Grandma or not?
Doesn't seem so, no. As we understand it, there are no plans for them to go up to Balmoral. They have quite a crowded schedule, an appointment here, an engagement here with one of their charities, then over abroad for the 1 year anniversary, the 1 year mark till the next Invictus Games in Germany, and then back here. And then presumably flying out again. I'm not sure that any of the royal family really want to see Harry and Meghan at the moment. I know the Queen says that they will always be much loved members of the family, and I'm sure that is very much her view, and she probably would love to see Harry, but my goodness, Meghan Markle has thrown another hand grenade into the whole thing, hasn't she, with her latest utterings in magazines and podcasts.
Jenny, could I ask you if you think that was just by accident or that was deliberately planned, do you think? I mean, on the anniversary, the 25th anniversary of the death of Princess Diana, we were looking at the newspapers yesterday and there were as many Meghan pictures and headlines as there were Diana pictures.
Sometimes more.
Do you think that was deliberate?
You know, I really hesitate to think badly of Meghan and think she could be so scheming, but you can't get away from the fact that that photograph of her that was issued is an almost exact replica of Diana on the front cover of Andrew Morton's book, Her True Story. And the timing was once again, well, you have to think it could be coincidental, but I'm afraid it probably wasn't. It was most unfortunate is the kindest thing I can think to say.
What about this guest editing by Prince Charles of this black publication? Names escaping me now.
The Voice.
The Voice. To commemorate its 40th anniversary. I mean, a lot of people were saying, I hope Meghan Markle takes note of this.
Yeah, well, I hope she does. Yes, he was very happy to do that. And the executive director said he was absolutely charming throughout. They had lots of consultations. He's written an article for it. He suggested other articles for it. I think Idris Elba, who was helped by the Prince's Trust, has been interviewed for it. It's wonderful. It's the sort of thing he does and always has done. But as you say, perhaps Meghan didn't take full note of it when she was within the royal family.
Jenny, always a pleasure listening to your analysis. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you. And as usual, you look just so beautiful.
I must say, I did think I want to comment on how beautiful your dress is, and then I thought that's not very professional of me.
No, I'm not very
leaping out of the screen.
You know. I don't believe in being professional, but I do look and I say, she should have her own shopping channel, her own range.
I'd buy that dress. I would buy it.
Yes, there's always something, you know, you could hang,
want to be like
you could
Jenny.
hang a dishcloth on that woman and it would look well. And I always love looking at her shelves as well.
I do.
Yes, her books, her range behind her, everything.
They're my husband's. I told you they're my husband's. This dress is very pretty. Yes, I'll show you.
Look at that. We get a fashion show.
Oh,
lovely.
It's even better.
Yeah,
that.
The colours, everything. Lovely, lovely. Jenny Bond, how brilliantly. Great. Her dress range will be available soon, we think, on QVC.
I want to know where it's from. Message me. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jenny.
Thank you. Good talking to you. With the time approaching, almost exactly 8:15, let's bring you up to date with the news.
Boris Johnson's expected to deliver a speech today on the country's energy future. It comes amid speculation that the government will give the sign-off for the Sizewell C nuclear plant in Suffolk.
The charity Medical Justice has called for the government to abandon its plan to send migrants to Rwanda. and free those awaiting removal. Medical justice doctors have found that the mental health of detainees has been severely impacted by the threat of moving them to Rwanda. They say they are detained, and those detained are suffering from conditions such as PTSD and depression.
The NHS has called for volunteers as it relaunches its COVID-19 booster programme ahead of the winter months. The initiative will target a total of 26 million people, including those who are clinically at risk and people aged 50 and over. Volunteers are being asked to help at vaccination sites with non-clinical tasks, no qualifications required, and all expenses will be covered. We've been talking about modern values and whether or not families are being valued or whether we're seeing more lone parents. Interesting email from Angela Bryant, if you'll indulge me. Morning all, listening intently to Liz Kershaw on the papers. I'm from a marriage that was awful, my dad being a terrible bully, but I've been married for 40 years now to the man I met at 15. We have 2 wonderful daughters and we're about to be grandparents. But Liz is right, because I know very few have this. And to slightly agree with Eamonn, yes, he's now a bit of a rusty engine, runs a bit slow, but after 40 years, he's my little classic. Would I want a Ferrari? No, I couldn't keep up. Love GB News, wouldn't and don't watch anyone else. Thanks, Angela Bryant, that made me laugh.
No, that's very good. I appreciate that. And also that wee lady who was dressed in her Welsh national outfit on social media.
Oh yes, you posted yesterday.
If you want to go to my Instagram account or Isabel's Instagram account, you'll see this lady who sent us a message, who also, like Angela, watches. And she was from Wales, and all our love to her. She didn't leave her name, but it's very funny. And she said she was speaking on behalf of the whole of Wales. But she says, watch us and like us in the morning. So
we'll take
we're
that.
Very grateful. We're very, very grateful for that.
OK, let's return now to our top story. It was last night the final Conservative Party hustings. It took place at Wembley Stadium. And as always, the cost of living and taxes were right at the top of the agenda.
But despite Rishi Sunak's performance last night, which was rated as very positive, most people agree that it won't be enough to save his campaign.
Well, let's hear from one of his major backers, Mark Harper, MP for the Forest of Dean. And look, it was a big night for Rishi Sunak. Lots of people saying he was on fire, held the room. I suppose he's got that kind of feeling of nothing to lose. Is that fair to say?
Well, look, I don't really agree with your analysis there. I've been out with him on a number of events and done a lot of meetings myself, and the feel on the ground is very good. It doesn't really reflect what the polls are saying, and I still remember back to 2015 in the general election campaign where all the polls, every single poll, said that the Conservatives were not going to win that election. It felt much better than that on the ground, and that's exactly what I think this time. So I think it's all still to play for. We've still got any member that hasn't voted yet can still go online and cast their vote by 5 o'clock tomorrow, and I think it's still all to play for. And Rishi turned in a fantastic performance last night in front of, 6,000 Conservative Party members, and I think as you said, all the reporting of that event has been incredibly positive.
Talk about what was said or what wasn't said last night. I mean, he was very reluctant, wasn't he, to rule anything out, whereas a lot of people would say at least Liz Truss is very clear about what her premiership will look like and saying she doesn't think there'll only be rationing of energy over the winter, appearing to rule out blackouts, and said there will not be any new taxes as well.
Well, I think Rishi's been very cautious because we can see what reality looks like, and I think all the way through this campaign he's been very careful to be honest and straightforward with people. We can already see in other European countries, we can see that they're looking at having to worry about energy over the winter. If we see Vladimir Putin using gas as a weapon in his campaign to try and his aggressive war in Ukraine, then we may find that other European countries from whom we get energy may well end up finding that energy isn't coming to us. So I think, look, you've got to be prepared for every eventuality. I think we've got to be very careful about what we do. We've got a very tough winter coming, and I think you've got to have a Prime Minister that's very focused on the reality facing us and then put in place plans to deal with that and not just hope for the best.
I suppose one of the challenges Rishi Sunak's faced is that he has been the Chancellor and he has to answer to that record whilst trying to win over the membership. And a lot of people looking to what the country's facing now, people perhaps blaming him for some of the problems that we're facing now. He was slow in the spring statement to identify this cost of living crisis coming. A lot of the support that he announced in May as a bit of a catch-up wasn't targeted enough, a lot of people could say. And now we've got the Resolution Foundation coming out this morning saying 14 million people in modern Britain will be living in poverty by next year, a rise of 3 million in absolute poverty over the next 2 years. Does he accept any of the responsibility for that? And does he think he'll be able to put that right?
Well, look, I think what the Resolution Foundation highlights is that the #1 challenge facing the country is getting a grip of inflation. In their report, they've suggested that high inflation might last for another year. That would be really damaging for families, and so Rishi's made the top priority in his campaign gripping inflation and not doing anything that risks making inflation worse. And his concern is that large unfunded tax cuts promised by his opponent in this contest would actually make inflation worse. That's not going to help families. So his focus is get inflation down, inflation that's being driven by global events, but get that down, stop it becoming embedded in the economy. That's how you help those 14 million families have a better quality of life.
To get your thoughts. It's going to be a very interesting couple of days coming up. We look forward to hearing from you perhaps next week in response to the end of this contest. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. 15 hours, what?
15 hours to go.
On the transfer deadline for the Conservative Party membership voting. A bit more than that, if only.
No, that'll be that finishes on Friday.
Friday, 5 o'clock, so a bit longer. The transfer window's a bit shorter.
11 o'clock tonight.
Football.
And that's the colour. That's for transfer deadline day. Yellow.
I did do that.
There you have. You've got that deliberately. We have got the man who, for many years, associated with transfer deadline day, gave the best quotes. He made a lot of very good signings. He's got lots of tales to tell on this. Harry Redknapp, me, and Paul Coyte talking football after the weather.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather updates. A dry and a fine day today. A little chilly out there this morning in places, but overall by this afternoon, a bit warmer than yesterday. However, the weather is on the change. Much wetter conditions heading our way. Low pressure approaching from the south and the northwest, squeezing away this area of high pressure. But that high is still dominant today. So, as I said, most places are dry. An easterly breeze bringing, again, a cool feel on some North Sea coasts and a bit more cloud across eastern England. 1 or 2 showers here and there too. But for the vast majority, it's dry, it's bright, with some spells of sunshine. We will see some showers heading up towards the Channel Isles and the sunshine perhaps turning a little hazy across the south as the cloud starts to increase. But temperatures here still getting up into the mid-20s. Touch warmer than yesterday for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Many urban areas up to 20 Celsius here. Through this evening, I think we'll start to see a few more showers, initially just spreading up from France over the Channel into southern parts of England, but 1 or 2 more over northeast England, the cloud increasing across the northwest also. And by morning time, we'll see a few showers over the Midlands and into parts of Wales. A relatively warm night across the south, 15, 16 in towns and cities here, and a warmer night for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but still down to single figures in rural areas here. And a bright start here to Friday with some sunny spells, but we are going to see both those weather fronts we talked about, one coming up from the south, one coming in from the northwest, increasing the amounts of cloud and bringing more and more showers by the afternoon. Much of eastern England, good part of northern England will stay dry still, and even further south, if you're after rainfall, Friday's showers are still going to be very hit and miss, so no guarantee. But we are looking at much wetter conditions for all as we head into the weekend. Those 2 weather systems joining together to form one area of low pressure that's going to last through the weekend, bringing all of us some spells of rain. Goodbye.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Isabel, sometimes you just get better looking as the programme goes on.
Well, it's funny you should say that. It's funny you should say that because I find that since I've had a shave, I just look a lot more attractive.
You look well.
Thank you very much.
You look very, very well. Today is transfer deadline day in football, right?
I thought you meant in hosts it was transfer deadline day. That's the reason I'm here.
It sort of is
okay,
as well.
fine.
It is, anyway. So we sat here and we thought, Paul Coit and I, we thought, who could we get to talk about transfer deadline day? Who's got the stories? Who's got the wit? Who's been there as a manager? Who would you want to turn to? And we thought...
Harry Redknapp.
Harry Redknapp.
Who else?
Who
It's
else?
got to be the
Who
great
else?
Harry
Who
Redknapp.
else? The great manager.
Morning, Harry.
How are you?
Really well. I mean, the thing, I've got to say, what's it like? Do you miss it? Do you miss not being involved in the cut and thrust there of transfer deadline day, or is it nice to look from the outside now?
It's nice to look from the outside, Paul. You know, it's always I think it's a day where you really don't want to be that involved. It's nice to have a team that's going well. You don't need any players. You're quite happy with what you got. You know, I always found myself in a situation where you're scrapping away to either stay up or get somewhere or try to get promoted or whatever, and trying to improve your team a bit. But I would think one or two clubs, probably Liverpool, won't do anything today. Man City probably won't bother. You know, it would be nice to be in their position for sure.
I want to talk to you about the lengths as a manager, Harry, you would go to get the guy you want. And I'm thinking at one stage, I think when you were the Spurs manager, Eden Hazard, who I remember as Chelsea. I don't remember seeing his name as a Spurs player.
I would have liked to have done.
But you tried to woo this guy. Tell us the story.
Well, no, Joe Cole rang me. Joe was playing out in France, and he rang me up and said, "Harry, I'm playing with the best player I've ever played with." And so I went over at the weekend on a Sunday to watch him, and at 10 minutes, you knew he was an incredible talent, you know. And I end up meeting him in a hotel room and chatting him and talking to him. And he was keen to come to Tottenham at the time, but it wasn't easy. We couldn't get the deal over. You know, Daniel was at the time didn't want to spend that money, and so I ended up losing him. But I mean, yeah, most deals are done, Eamonn. They're done way before they come into it. And you know, will Chelsea get Fofana? Listen, everything's done. The agent knows about it. The player knows. The wages are sorted. You know, it's all done behind the scenes. I mean, probably the funniest one I had was with the boy Odewingie, who I was taking to QPR, you know, and we were still negotiating and couldn't get a deal with West Brom. Then suddenly the cameras are outside the Loftus Road, QPR's ground, and he turns up in a car coming into the stadium. The chairman at West Brom sees it, and he's not even agreed to deal with him. He was still their player, you know, so that one didn't happen in the end. He wasn't too happy, the chairman at QPR, and pulled the plug on the deal. But no, it's an interesting day, obviously, for some clubs who are desperate to get a few players in still.
How late does it actually go, Harry? Because a lot of us, we're watching right down to the last minute, aren't we, thinking, is someone going to come in? Are these deals bubbling under maybe days before, or really do they go right down to the wire and all of a sudden, I'm thinking about like Rafa van der Vaart when he signed for Spurs, and that was on deadline day, right a couple of hours before. Does it just come through and it's all of a sudden, look, we've got a chance of this great player, and it just comes from nowhere?
Yeah, it can drag on, and it can go down to the wire, Paul. Rafa we would look at the loan Rafa, and suddenly Daniel did well. Daniel said, listen, they won't loan him, we can buy him, they want some money. We can get him for 8 million, which was absolute snip. He was a fantastic footballer. So we end up taking him at the last minute. Yeah, quite often they go right. Listen, I mean, the problem is you probably got to find some of the players you're trying to sign. They're probably out in a nightclub somewhere. You're trying to find them at 10 o'clock at night. It's very difficult.
Is it true that you had to once physically wake up a player and put him on a plane to get the transfer through?
Well, I sold Benjani. It was early in the day. He was at the club, but I had to. He wasn't keen to go, and Man City were paying an awful lot of money for him. Sven was the manager, Sven-Göran Eriksson, and I thought that they were paying top money. I love Benji. He was a great lad and everything, but the money they offered, I felt, was a fantastic offer. But he wasn't too keen, so I had to push him onto the runway at Southampton Airport. And he kept saying, "No, I like it here, Gaff." I'm going, "No, Benji, go to Man City. They have a better manager than me. Sven, he's fantastic."
There's no such thing as a better manager than Harry Redknapp, for crying out loud.
He'll teach you how to score goals, Benji. Go on, off you go.
What's it like, Harry, to be rejected? I mean, is it like you woo somebody? I mean, with Hazard, you sat in a hotel bedroom with him for hours and hours trying to convince him to sign. Yeah. And then actually you think, it's like, give us a kiss, you're going to do it. And they say no.
Yeah, well, it happens a lot, Eamonn. Somebody else comes in and offers more money or whatever. But that one there was just as that was a case of at that time, we didn't want to spend the money, Tottenham. But I mean, Daniel loves, Paul knows all about Tottenham. They love, Daniel loves a last minute deadline deal. I took 3 players off him. We went to sign one, but he done a special buy 2, get 1 free deal when I was at Portsmouth with Tottenham. I mean, that is Daniel, buy 1, get 1 free. But he's a great negotiator, and he loves it.
How does it actually work, though, Harry? Again, there's always reporters outside training grounds. Everything's locked. We see the lights on and it's dark, and all of a sudden these things get rolled out. Is it you on the phone, or generally is it the manager? Is it the chairman? We always hear about facts coming through. So who's doing the deals and who's speaking to who in these situations?
Normally the chairman is doing them, Paul. He'll be on the phone and back in the day, long time, it was the manager to manager, but now it's chief executive, chairman. They do all the deals, I mean, I'll be honest, half the time the managers probably don't even know who's coming in. It's probably someone the chairman fancies, or and so he goes, "Oh, I just signed you, whatever his name is," and you think, "Oh well."
I tell you, everybody must fancy Erling Haaland at Man City. They paid 51 million quid in the summer from Dortmund. That's an absolute steal. That guy is magic, isn't he?
How good does he look, Eamonn? It's unbelievable. Look at his age, look at him, his power, his finishing, he's got everything, hasn't he? He looks just amazing. Another hat-trick last night. I would think that at the start of the year you could have bet him to be top goal scorer. I think the bookies will probably be paying out next week on that one. He just looks amazing. What a signing! But and he'll tip the balance, I would think, this year. Man City, I mean, they won it last year, but can you see anybody finishing above them now? It's going to be very difficult. Liverpool, at the moment, picking up results here and there. Last night, really very fortunate to beat Newcastle. I watched the end of the game after I got back from the Bournemouth game, and Newcastle played fantastic yesterday at Liverpool, but I'd have to fancy Man City this year, what I've seen so far.
Finally, we haven't had the call then from Bournemouth then, Harry. They haven't given you the call yet, have they, to come in and save it?
No, that's going to be interesting. I went last night, Paul, and they did okay. They worked hard. They rode their luck a bit. Wolves missed a couple of great chances to win the game, but you couldn't have asked for more effort. Gary O'Neill, great lad who's in charge at the moment. I'd love to see him do well and have a crack at the job, but who knows what will happen. It's going to be interesting. 1 or 2 names in the frame. Sean Dyche mentioned. John Terry, I like John. I think John, given the opportunity one day, will be a fantastic manager. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Anything, Harry, just finally, you've got your eye on before 11 o'clock tonight. Anyone to get over the line? Any surprise ones or anyone that there's going to be pressure on to get the deal done?
I don't know. I mean, Man United have bought a couple in Eamonn. You needed them, that's for sure. Got a couple of signings done. They may still, try to get another one in. That's always possible. But I think the big two, I think Liverpool, Man City, who favourites for Tottenham, look like they've done their business. They've strengthened their squad. I think it might be quiet at the top of the league. There'll be a few panics down at the bottom, clubs trying to stay up and knowing how difficult their season's going to be. They'll probably try to strengthen. Not for us to sign about 22 players, but unfortunately it didn't help them much last night at Man City when they got beat 6.
No, that's the way it goes. That's football, Harry. Thanks for sharing your memories on this transfer deadline day, because we think transfer deadline day, Paul and I just immediately thought of you. So thanks very much indeed for chatting to us, my
Great to see you guys.
Good to see you, Harry.
Thank you. Cheers, Harry. Thank you very much indeed. Now, Isabel,
yes,
you head out, brush your hair.
Yes.
Put a bit of lippy on.
Make more of an effort.
And I'll see you back.
I'll try my very best.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. God bless you. Thank you very much indeed. Right, that's all the football talked about. What's happening in the newspapers? Liz Kershaw and Kunle Barker with that right after this.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's coming up to 20.
Oh, Isabel, lovely seeing you again.
Oh, thanks. I just left the boys to it there for a little bit of transfer news. But time now to go through the papers. We're joined again for one last look through them with the broadcaster Liz Kershaw and the property expert Kunle. Welcome back to both of you. Liz, shall we start with this row over the PM's car? It's inside the Telegraph today. Lots of discussion about ditching British wheels for German ones.
Yeah, this isn't just some pointless, indulgent patriotism. This is about the future of British manufacturing, I think. So the US president gets taken around with a beast, which is a Cadillac. The French president gets taken around in French cars, and the German chancellor is in BMWs and Mercedes. Since the war, our Prime Minister, look at the Queen, she's got her Daimlers and her Bentleys. The Prime Minister has had a Humber and Rovers, and then when Margaret Thatcher came in, she said, no, I want Jaguars and Daimlers. And they've been used ever since for the Prime Minister and all ministerial cars. Manufactured by Jaguar Land Rover, they're customised, they're bulletproof, etc., armour-plated. Now, the Metropolitan Police, who I think we can all agree, recently have demonstrated just how out of tune they are with the public mood on most things, have decided to order BMWs. And they've made no comment, they've refused to comment, but the word is unofficial that Jaguar Land Rover aren't producing these Jaguar XF saloon cars. I'm sure they would. Have they asked? There's no quote from Jaguar Land Rover. And it's just wrong because it ties in with what's going on at the moment, what we were speaking about earlier, which is British manufacturing suffering, as is German and French, from the fuel crisis. And we need to support our manufacturing. Why? Because if people don't have jobs, they'll be sitting at home, cold, unable to heat their own home.
I hear what you're saying, Liz, and I don't disagree, but if it's also protecting police budgets, and if the car is more suitable to the job than whatever Jaguar are offering, I suppose if you're running a police force and members of the public only care if the police officers are going to turn up, they don't really care what they're turning up in. But I agree with you, the overall look is so important, whether, you know, the Germans with Mercedes, the French with whatever they're using.
And I have to say, normally, don't we these days see the Prime Minister in Range Rovers?
Yeah, there's Jaguar Land Rover make the armour-plated Range Rovers as well, and there's no suggestion they'll be replaced by a Honda CRV.
So I can't remember the last time I saw Boris climbing out of a Jaguar.
No, he prefers the Land Rover range because they're roomier, and he's a roomier guy. But it's so bad visually for our image on the world stage. It's so bad because we should be promoting Jaguar Land Rover. It's not just the manufacturer of the cars itself. There's throughout the West Midlands, there's the people who make the spark plugs that cover the seats.
But also,
in
if you look at archive footage of Margaret Thatcher, it says Britain. It says does. Britain all the time, with those sexy Jaguars that they were in.
You have a colleague who was changing his car recently.
Yeah.
He's always had Mercedes.
Yes, I know who it
said
is.
to him, excuse me, you work on a TV and radio station now that starts the day with the national anthem. Get yourself a British car.
Yeah.
I'm proud to say he's bought himself a Jaguar. And I was taken for a ride in it the other day, and it's superb. Yeah. So let's all... I've got a Jag.
Well, my only criticism is, for bigger people like myself, very difficult to get into the back.
But you have a roomy...
I have a very roomy car.
Range Rover. So you're all right. Sorry.
Well, Range Rover's good. That's JLR as well.
But that's part of... I mean, you know, cars seem to get smaller and smaller in terms of... Here's how you get into a car nowadays if you're someone my size. So you're...
Yeah, but I don't want to complain.
You have to limbo dance.
I struggle to get in and out the back of your car elegantly.
But you're a big girl. You know, that's a... I mean, I'm just saying, if it was a smaller, more svelte, you know, it wouldn't be a problem.
Kill me now.
I had one, and I took my grandma for a run out. She's like itching her skirts up, and she's only 5'3", too big, trying to get into this car. And she says, Elizabeth, why didn't you buy yourself a proper car rather than this bloody old jalopy? I'm thinking, it's a luxury, it's 4x4, but they are tricky. Get yourself some steps like they have in the kitchen to get in the top cupboards.
No, but I do have steps to get in my car. Because you open the door, automatically the step comes out and you stand on it.
That is
a posh model.
It is posh, but that is why my admiration for Kate Middleton knows no limits, because she gets in and out of the back of one of those.
She's slight, well, she's half your size. What I'm trying to say is you can't compare like with like. You know, you can't, I'm just saying.
I think she's actually taller than me. I'm 5'8".
Yeah, but she's...
I know, she's half
Anyway,
the
it's
width.
about British jobs, is all I was saying.
OK, we moved from British jobs, we moved to Qatar, Kunle, on this one. Yeah. The Football World Cup is going to happen in November into December there.
Absolutely.
And this is from The Telegraph.
Yeah, and David Beckham's been under some pressure because of the work that he's been doing.
Promotional work.
Promotional work.
He's paid a big fee to be there.
He's paid a huge fee. And I got some sympathy for him because David Beckham is an ambassador of football, and that's what he's doing. Now, the issue about LGBT rights is a much bigger one.
So what you're trying to do is to separate football from the country or the state or whatever, the emirate of Qatar.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's not David Beckham's job to sort of make sure that they change their laws, their rules.
Is it not?
I don't think so, no. I think because...
How could you be a sort of gay icon and then align yourself with a country where it's illegal?
In my opinion, he is there to do a job promoting football, and that's what he's doing. Now, there are 69 other countries in the world. Some of them, you know, holiday destinations we all go to, places like Barbados, Antigua, that criminalise homosexuality. If you watch that Tom Daley documentary on the other channels, I was surprised. I could not believe how many countries in this day and age have laws against homosexuality. Some of them have death sentences as well.
You're saying they get a free pass from many of us who would holiday there or buy their goods or not protest about this.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it's not... All of this is focused on David Beckham, and really it seems to be all about the money he's getting. But, you know, he earns a lot of money. That's just what he does.
But he does have power. And, you know, personally, if I had that profile, that money, I would like to try and affect positive change where I could. And he could, if he wanted to.
He could, but the real change should have been the World Cup. If that's how we think about it, the World Cup shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah, well, there's that argument. There is that argument. But, I mean, does football need promoting more? Probably not. To be honest, I mean, does he really? It gets plenty of promotion. What does need promotion is human rights.
Yeah, well, exactly. But I think, you know, he's just doing a job. That's just his job, you know, and I think it's a bit unfair.
Liz, we're approaching conference season, just a couple of weeks away, beginning with the TUC, I believe.
Yeah.
But you've gone to the Times, and they highlight that there will be rail strikes during the Labour Party conference.
Yeah, it's Mick Lynch versus Keir Starmer time. It's all built up now and they're head on, because if you want to get to Liverpool for the Labour conference towards the end of this month, you'll have a job. Avanti trains, they only nowadays, and the Mayor of Liverpool has been saying for a while, it's ridiculous, they only run one train an hour from Euston to Liverpool Lime Street. And they've cut the trains to Manchester, so I'm sure you might have experienced, from 3 trains an hour from Euston to just 1 train an hour. Anyway, there's not going to be any trains on the day that people are getting to the Labour Party conference, and it's been suggested it's entirely deliberate and strategic. Keir Starmer has been on the fence. He said, I support the unions, but it's not my job to go on the picket line or let my MPs do that. My job is to get this government elected. Well, I think Mick Lynch is grabbing it now and trying to bring it to a head and make the Labour Party stand up and show what it really does believe in.
Yeah, look, I think it's really difficult in a time when people are, you know, coming out of COVID, when lots of people lost their jobs, been on reduced hours, when we're worried about heating our homes and cost of food. I get why they're striking, I get the argument, but I think to cause this much disruption to everyday people is probably a misjudgment on their part.
Misjudgment when you strike a golf ball can be very costly. Page 3 of the Times. To tell us about this.
Yeah, this made me giggle because I am not particularly good, but a very enthusiastic golfer. And it just made me laugh to think there's a wedding venue in Torquay which has had a bill for £20,000 because of golf balls hitting the roof. But I have a bit of advice for them. Certainly, if I'm playing, just put the flag on the roof of the venue,
and then we'll miss it.
Ball will not go anywhere near it. You know?
So what they're suing? Are they suing the council for this money?
They're asking the council that they should be. It's a council-run facility.
I mean, it is vicious. I mean, if you drive past a road where someone's going to slice or hook, or you have a house nearby, or whatever it is, it can be very, very scary. I once hit someone smack bang in the middle of the forehead with a golf ball.
Wow.
Is that deliberate? Or?
No, believe me, as Cunley says, I couldn't have done it if it had have been deliberate. But so basically, are you a slicer or a hooker?
I've got a ferocious slice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing to watch.
It is, but it's very difficult to get right.
Well, it always goes right. That's the problem.
Okay.
I can't see any point of walking round all day with another bloke and trying to get a ball in a hole. No.
Love it.
Good headline in the Mirror. Woo, Betty. Forecasters unveil latest favourite storm names. Now, I'm going to say in advance, I hate this practice. I am sensible enough to be able to say there was a storm in February 2022 that hit A, B and C. I can understand all that. I don't need it to be called Cyril or Elliot or anything. And I'll tell you what's going to happen next here. They're going to start complaining. Oh, there's not enough variety in these names. There's not enough
Well,
diversity
what
in
about
these
the gender
names.
brigade? They're going to start saying, why do you have some called boys' names and why do you have some called girls' names?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, but they do alternate. So the next one, voted for by the public, I can't believe this.
No, neither can I.
Anthony, with an I on the end.
Oh, Lord.
Coming up, Killian, Elliot, etc. Johanna. Anyway, Betty's the first woman. But I just wanted to say that, you know, having had an unfashionable name for so long.
What, Liz?
Yeah, I think it's been out of fashion with mums giving babies names. Anyway, now we're going to have Queen Liz, Liz PM, Liz on the papers on a Thursday, not the same league, and Storm Liz, because Betty's Liz, Elizabeth by another name.
Oh, right.
So I think we're going to might have a space
Making a comeback.
might make a comeback in the charts.
Yeah.
Baby name charts.
And the most gorgeous Liz of all, Liz Hurley. Oh.
Yeah.
I love the name. And, of course, there's Lilibet.
Yeah.
Well, that's been hijacked, hasn't it?
There you go.
That's another thing.
Yeah, Libulus I got called.
Mm-hmm. OK, guys, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, lovely. Lovely having you on board. Enjoyed your company this morning. Liz Kershaw and Cunley Barker there. And that's their roundup for today done. So it is 9 minutes before 9 o'clock.
Yeah, we're going to talk about an interesting charity now. It's called Harry's Rainbow, and it has been supporting children, young people in Milton Keynes who are struggling with grief.
Now, this group is run by Odette Mould, and Odette organises support sessions and trips. And it's a very personal mission for her. And she joins us alongside Jackie Smith. Jackie Smith, who has used the charity here, first of all. But we are... No, do read on. Let's just see what's happening. We're going to cross live by satellite and we're going to see these things and we can commentate over the pictures here because this is their Odette.
Hello.
Who's Odette and who is Jackie? Like this is what's happening. You see, this is a
Live
technician
television. No.
who has to be on his own. Right, so let's see what's going
Stuck
on.
in traffic, he was, I was told. This morning.
So what you've got is the camera operator there who will have to do the microphones and the vision and whatever, and he will be
has
hooking
no
up.
idea we're broadcasting
that
him live.
we're taking a picture of his bottom, and he's working with great speed. And he's putting an earpiece into one of our guests here and a microphone.
I suspect our friend on the right can hear it because she's laughing.
Our friend on the right, who are you?
In the blue.
My name's Odette. Good morning.
Odette, you're with
Odette.
us. Odette Mould, lovely to meet you. And you're joined beside you by Jackie Smith. Odette, tell us a little bit about this
That's right.
charity because it's a very personal story as to why you set it up.
Yes, it is. In 2009, my son Harry died. He was 5 years old, has a twin sister, Jessica. They were our only two children. And suddenly he died after a short period of time in hospital. What I come to realise through my experience and experience of my family is that there was nothing in Milton Keynes to support bereaved children, and also a severe lack of understanding for the needs for bereaved children and their families. And so I set up Harry's Rainbow. There's a story as to why
Odette,
it's
first
called
of all,
Harry's Rainbow. I won't
you know,
go into that.
our condolences to you because that pain never goes away. But I suppose before we talk to Jackie, we just want to know, the pain never goes away, but I suppose what you're saying with Harry's Rainbow is you try to get people to cope, a coping strategy with all of this.
Yeah, so we have a number of services in place to support children who have been bereaved of a parent or a sibling, and we run various services exactly to support children, helping them to understand their feelings and spending time with other people to help them feel less lonely and isolated.
Well, Odette, it's amazing what you've done, and you know, to have come through something like the loss of a child, a young child as well. Amazing. Turn it into
which is
something
amazing.
positive.
Well, we're going to turn that something positive into something else, Odette, because however admirable Harry's Rainbow is, that's not exactly why we are in your home to talk today. And Jackie, beside you there, will tell us why, because Jackie got in touch with us, and we have this section on the programme called People's Champion. where we just get people, we nominate special people. And Odette, you are that special person. And this is why Jackie nominated you.
We'd love to nominate Odette Mould for Breakfast People's Champion.
Odette founded Harry's Rainbow after losing her young son to support bereaved children in and around Milton Keynes, something she hadn't been able to find for her daughter, Harry's twin.
Since losing my dad in 2018, I've been so lucky to have received help from Odette through memory boxes, the Rainbow Retreat, groups, activities and more.
During the pandemic, Odette thought creatively and continued to deliver support through online groups. Her passion, energy, dedication and her belief that bereaved children really do matter is inspirational.
Odette is still finding new ways to help bereaved children.
She really is a people's champion.
Oh, wow. Well done, Odette. And you're sitting next to Jackie throughout all of that. Are you getting emotional?
Yeah. Oh, that was really... Yeah, absolutely no idea.
What do you want to say to Jackie then for nominating you? And Jackie, do you want to say anything to Odette as well?
I think for our family, I always just say a big thank you, because our family and my daughter in particular, Corinza Cheyenne, and my granddaughter actually as well, Holly Freya, would not be where they are now without Odette and Harry's Rainbow's passion and dedication.
Yeah. And Odette, what would you say about grief in general and anyone suffering from it? Because, you know, I suppose it doesn't matter how old or young you are, when you lose someone around you, it hurts very, very badly. What would you say to people going through the experience at the moment?
I would say always reach out to friends and family and to community around you, and friends and family. Always be aware of those around you who are grieving. It doesn't matter if it's 1 year, 10 years, or in my case 13 years. We will always need support in different ways and at different times. And we have just released a podcast actually which really does help support parents who are supporting their bereaved children. So I'd urge you to reach out and have a listen. That can help those who are grieving, children who are grieving, parents, but also the community and everyone around, so we can raise the awareness of child bereavement, the needs for the bereaved community.
Yeah, and Jackie, we saw your daughter featuring in that nomination video, and she's had such a tough time through the loss of your husband, her dad as well. And you said that Harry's Rainbow helped your daughter get her smile back again. And what a lovely thing, what a lovely description there, because, you know, for children in particular, when they're still growing up, such a tender age, to lose a parent, it must be very hard to find that smile.
Absolutely. My daughter was 14 when her dad died, and she'd watched him become paralysed through esophageal cancer, a really vile illness. And for a long time she was floundering while trying to do her GCSEs. And it was a slow burn getting her in touch with Odette and Harry's Rainbow, but we persevered. Odette never put pressure on her, but she just left the door open always. And it was Corinza's words that Harry's Rainbow eventually gave her smile back.
Yeah. Odette, you lost Harry. Harry had a twin sister, Jessica. Jessica, obviously...
Yeah.
I mean, you know, to lose someone, to lose a twin, I can't imagine. But that's why the charity was formed. How is Jessica doing?
She's good. She's just absolutely smashed her A-levels. She's currently on holiday at the moment. Hopefully she's tuning in. Hi, Jess. She's nearly 19 years old. Their birthday's at the end of October. No, she's doing really, really well. It's always difficult to know if the decisions you make as a parent are the right decisions, and you'll never know whether that's due to bereavement or any other reason, as I'm sure everyone who parents children knows. But no, she's doing really, really, really well, and we're really, really, really proud of her.
Well, Odette Mould, you are a People's Champion, as nominated by Jackie Smith there. People in Milton Keynes will know your work. They'll know the work of Harry's Rainbow as well. And it just gets better and better on this programme, as you will see this amazing trophy that we have got for you today. That is your own mug, your own personal drinking mug, with the title People's Champion.
But we're also making a donation to your charity as well, and we'll talk to you off air about that. But we want to contribute so that you're able to continue your amazing work. And this is why we do this segment on this programme, because we know there are people like you up and down the country,
people that make a difference,
people who are doing good things, and we want to talk about that as well, because thank goodness people like you.
Cheers, Odette.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jackie, for nominating.
Eamonn.
Yes, Jackie.
Eamonn.
Yes, Jackie.
They are having a fundraising ball in October. Could you possibly get in touch with a signed photo for them to auction?
We'll have to do something better than a signed photograph. I mean, I could do a what are those called? Members-only videos. What's that called?
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans.
No, Eamonn. No, Eamonn.
I could not do an OnlyFans video.
This is a lovely segment.
Are you sure?
A photo will be fine.
I think they might want that.
Jackie, don't you worry about that.
Jackie, do you know what
I can't guarantee you'll get much for it.
Well, look, we'll have a think about something that'll be more worthwhile. You two are amazing people. You're brilliant people.
You are.
We're glad that we can give you a smile, because I know there were lots of times where there were no smiles. We raise a mug to you. Our GB News mugs here, not as good as yours. Fill it up with something. Get yourselves 2 big buns and enjoy the rest of the day. Okay.
Coffee. That's my girl.
God bless. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Mould, our latest People's Champion in Milton Keynes. Very good. Very, very good indeed.
Look, if you'd like to be a if you'd like to nominate a People's Champion, do so by emailing us at gbviews@gbnews.uk with the title Breakfast People's Champion. We're going to take a quick break.
Wait a minute. We'll talk about. Do you not think there's room for me to develop a fans-only section?
Only fans, and no, I mean there are all sorts of niches out there, but I don't think this is,
But there could be.
Let's
there
not
could
go
be
there.
room for Okay, all right.
We'll take a break.
Yeah.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Liz Truss rules out energy rationing, risking blackouts this winter at the final Conservative leadership hustings.
Hello there, very good morning. Good to see you on this Thursday morning. It is the 1st of September. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The 12th and final hustings of the Conservative leadership election took place last night. Liz Truss promised no new taxes and ruled out energy rationing this winter. Rishi Sunak, meanwhile, refused to take any option off the table.
Now, this comes as Buckingham Palace announces that the Queen will appoint the new Prime Minister from Balmoral instead of London. The break from royal tradition is due to the Queen's mobility issues.
New figures have revealed that the cost of living crisis could plunge 3 million more people into absolute poverty. The report from the Resolution Foundation warns that by next year, 1 in 5 people in Britain could be living below the breadline.
Thanks for joining in our discussions today. We will try and reflect those as we go through whatever else is happening on the programme. And we begin with Dawn Neeson right after this. No sting?
We're not doing a sting. Not today.
I'm told if we can't do a sting,
Okay,
nothing
never
else
mind,
happens.
never mind. We're going to talk about
But
the final
anyway,
Conservative leadership hustings. It took place last night. The race for number 10 is winding down. Liz
Hurrah!
Truss ruled out energy rationing, vowed not to introduce any new taxes, while Rishi Sunak said that nothing should be taken off the table.
Now, earlier on in the programme, we had Conservative Councillor for Epping Forest, that's Holly Whitbread. She supports Liz Truss. Rishi Fernando, the name's just a coincidence. He is the mayor of, where? Where? Yeah, it was called Where. The place is called Where. I'm not asking you where. He was the mayor of Where. He's the mayor of Where, which is in Hertfordshire.
Rishi for Rishi
Okay.
is the mayor of Where.
Right.
This is what he had to say.
Is a little bit more setback, whereas Rishi is, you almost see it sort of bubbling out of him in terms of his passion and his charisma. And I do think he truly believes that he will do what is best for the country and with everything that's going on.
Do you believe he'll do what is best for the country? In other words, we know Holly has voted for Liz Truss. Have you cast your vote yet?
I have not cast my vote yet. I will be casting mine online today, before the deadline, and I will be for Rishi. And I do think that, he was the Chancellor during the pandemic. He led us through an incredibly difficult time. Yes, everything he did wasn't popular. However, with this current cost of living crisis, we don't have months, we don't have years, we have days and weeks that we need to really set out and do something about it. Otherwise, people up and down the country are already feeling the hardship, and we don't have time to delay. And I think that's why Rishi is the best person going forward.
You see, for the vast majority of people in this country, Holly, aren't Conservative members. They don't have any say in this. But I think if I was one, I probably would have taken the position of Rishi and not voted till the last minute, so I could have heard all the arguments. Why did you decide to cast your vote so early on?
Yeah.
And do you have any regrets? Or, given that you said to me before the programme started, Rishi had the room last night at Wembley, a big room.
Yeah, I mean, Rishi did really well last night, and Rishi is a really kind of slick media performer and always does well in that setting. And don't get me wrong, I've always said from the beginning, whoever wins, I'd get behind them. But by the time I'd voted, I think I'd already heard about 3 or 4 hustings. So, I had the opportunity to really listen to the debates. And also, we had that whole kind of parliamentary stage, didn't we, where we really knew what they both stood for. So that's kind of why I made my choice quite early on.
And do you accept that a lot of what Liz is saying is playing to her current electorate rather than the wider audience? I mean, this suggestion that she is saying there will be no blackouts this winter, how can she say that?
I think she, it's not necessarily saying there'll be no blackouts, and God hope there's not. I think she was saying that she didn't want to have rationing. I think that was her kind of emphasis. And certainly she is playing...
Sorry, you're going to have to explain that to me. There's either going to be rationing, there's not. What? There's going to be blackouts or not blackouts. What is she head of electricity now? How can... She's simply made a claim that she cannot substantiate in any matter or form because she doesn't know what is going to happen.
And nobody knows what's going to happen. That's the reality of it. And I think, we're all worried about the winter ahead of us. And I think Liz, if she gets in on Monday, and I hope she does, she's got a tough job and she really needs to get to business straight away. She's talked about this fiscal event or budget, whatever it might be. And it's important she just gets on with it and provides the support.
No, it's important they tell the truth and they're realistic. Why couldn't you just say, who knows, we don't know what way the war in Ukraine is going to be, but I'll tell you, I will do my darnest to make sure that the lights will stay on, which people would understand or applaud.
Is what Rishi said, to be fair.
Yes, and I think, and that's the thing about what yesterday differentiated for me. Liz was saying everything I wanted to hear. Liz she can pull at the heartstrings. However, we are in a crisis at the moment. We are in an incredibly challenging time. And actually, I think we need that realism that, yes, we can have ambitions to move towards what Liz is saying, But now is the time to actually get on and solve this issue.
Here's what made me angry. Well, they're pouncing around that stage, yet another stage last night. I hear today that hospitals around the land could be faced with an extra £2 million a month in terms of their electricity bills, right? And that will have to come out of a clinical budget. Now, instead of Boris Johnson dressed up as Postman Pat or whatever he was doing yesterday, running around in an anti-stab vest, playing to the cameras, he should be in making policy, or they should be in making an agreed policy whereby they say, hospitals, they're our responsibility. We're going to look after hospitals, we're going to look after schools. We're going to fit the bill on that.
Yeah, I think, this is the reality that we're going to have a new government on Monday and they do really need to get on with it. I think that issue of an energy price cap, not just for the domestic user, but for organisations and businesses is a really important one because we're seeing so many businesses struggle as well as the NHS. So, there's a lot to do. There's a huge in trade. Both Liz and Rishi said that last night. There's a huge in trade that they need to get on with. I think for Boris, he's kind of going around doing his final lap in his last few days. But the reality is the candidates are kind of shadowing out what they're going to do and speaking to civil servants behind the scenes.
That was Holly Whitbread and Rishi Fernando on
Who's the
their
mayor
take
of
on
where?
the hustings last night. You're obsessed with
I'm not
that.
asking where, but is the place called Where? If you're from Where, let us know today. Where is Dawn Neeson from? The planet Zanussi, maybe it has to be said. But she's here to talk about this. Are we alone? Are we alone, Dawn, in thinking that was their last hustings? Thank goodness for that.
Oh my God! How many weeks? I mean, it's been going on.
Seven?
Seven
Bazillion
weeks. I mean, and you know what? On average, they seem to be making about 3 promises a day.
Yeah.
And does anyone actually even believe a word they're saying anymore? I mean, what was Liz saying last night? It says, no more tax rises, limit on motorway speed limits. I mean, there is nothing.
No blackouts. I mean, she's not in a position to promise there'll be no blackouts.
This. None of them can promise anything. And rather than saying we're going to have a budget, we're going to have a fiscal event. Huh? What's that?
I know.
What is it? Just, and they're talking to 0.03% of the population. Most of us are going,
what you're really saying is this may have a rebound effect from the point of view that the general electorate may say, no, we're fed up listening to you, we've had enough of you, and they're looking for all alternatives. The thing is, I've noticed about Labour recently that a lot of the usual mouthpieces aren't being used unless they're all on their holidays. And there's some very interesting people who have appeared on our show who they're not the normal. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They do not have the most charismatic leader there is.
No.
But we have often interviewed people and we thought, interesting.
Yeah. But can you remember their names?
Yes.
Oh.
I don't want to mention them,
No, that's
but I
impressive.
can.
But it is interesting, the people now that are coming out on Labour's side, because I think for so long that the problem with Labour is that, as you say, Keir Starmer's probably a very nice bloke, but he's a bit bland. Forensic is the word you use because he's a barrister, but some would say dull. And you can't really... I mean, I know they do have policies, of course. We all know they have policies. But you can't actually name their policies, which is the problem. And I think most people in this country now, I mean, please get in contact if you think I'm wrong, are going, I just don't... if there was a general election tomorrow... because Labour aren't Labour, Tories aren't Tory.
Well, they're in front of an open goal because this government is in absence, or it appears to be. I know, Isabel, you keep saying they're working behind the scenes, civil servants are working behind the scenes, whatever. But we're not hearing anything publicly about, here's what we're going to do, this is what's happening. And I think the fear vacuum is just being filled by frustration.
Yeah, you know what, Eamonn, I think the thing we're all frustrated with now is the fact that nothing is being done. You have had this hiatus of nothing happening for 7 weeks. It feels like a lot longer. It does feel like it's been going on all year. And nothing has been done. And we are facing, some huge crisis in this country. And no one seems to be running the country.
Yeah.
No one seems to be in opposition. I mean, meanwhile, the papers today and every day full of terrifying stories about how much hell we're all going to face in the coming months.
And it is
and some
terrifying.
of the scaremongering, by the way, I think needs to stop on that.
Dawn, there's some breaking news just coming in, some very, very sad news of a colleague of all of us in this business.
Yeah, this is the very sad news that Bill Turnbull passed away yesterday.
The newscaster, the guy famous for BBC Breakfast. You also know him from Classic FM as well. But he was suffering from cancer for a long time.
He was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2017. As you say, he was a breakfast TV presenter, went onto the radio, stepped down from the radio after his illness. It got too bad. He passed away with his family. You know, it's an incredibly... I mean, he was working as long as he could, and it's just an incredibly sad story.
66, so young, isn't it? And prostate cancer is supposed to be one of the good cancers,
If you get it early.
If you get it early, and I think in Bill's case, it hadn't been caught early enough, it had already spread. But as you say, prostate cancer, and please, anyone out there, just go and get a check straight away, because prostate cancer, if you do get it early enough, is one of the ones that you can live and carry on. So poor Bill, obviously it's a very tragic, sad story, and thoughts with his family this morning.
Absolutely, Bill. You'll be sadly missed. Let's get back. I want to talk about shoplifters, and this is an interesting one. I mean, traditionally, you would say, oh, shoplifters, yes, prosecute them, do this, do that, whatever. Times are different. Is there an excuse to be made that, I hate saying this, but almost you can excuse people shoplifting?
This is a story in the Telegraph today, and shoplifters caught on CCTV will not be prosecuted. They'll be let off by the police and Crown prosecutors despite being caught red-handed, no matter how much, stealing hundreds of pounds worth of goods. Now, there's 2 points to this story. One that you've just raised there, Eamonn, is the fact that people are being forced to shoplift because they can't afford the basics. I mean, when you've got stores actually putting security tags on essentials like, babies' nappies and milk and things like that, you have to question where we are. But also, it is giving carte blanche to criminals, and basically it is a crime. And let's look, if you're talking about the big supermarkets, maybe they can afford to supply this, but if you're running a small corner shop on the business, you're suffering. There's no cap on your energy prices, by the way. You have to make money and stay in business. If people are nicking from you, your business is going to go under. So I think this is, I get that people are suffering, but I think this is profoundly wrong. But I mean, the police aren't bothering with burglary and sex assaults and things like that. So
have you ever seen someone shoplift?
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. Me too.
Oh, God,
my local supermarket.
But what do you do?
I went and told.
Did you?
A good girl.
Did you?
Excuse me, there's a man over there who's a little bit sweaty. And he's just stealing some bacon, actually. And the man was like, yeah.
Well, in Belfast, you'd be kneecapped for that.
Oh, really?
Tarred and feathered. You'd be a tout. Informing the authorities. That's you all over.
I think maybe if you're in a big supermarket, I possibly wouldn't, but if it was my corner shop...
No, it was my big corner shop supermarket, you know the ones. Anyway.
But it is a crime at the end of the day.
I used to work in a clothing store, and the things that these people used to get up to, customers and staff, it had to be said, but it can be very inventive.
They do tell.
Oh, it can be very inventive. We can't talk to you. We have to go. And I'll tell you why we have to go, because we're going on a dating app, aren't we, Isabel?
Yeah.
A dating.
New world to me.
Yeah. So as Tinder turns 10 years of age, dating apps, the question we're putting out there, if you're on one, what your experience is.
Good for love or not? Or is it all about hookups?
Oh.
We'll be debating that.
What's the difference between a love and a hookup? Is that right? Okay, tell me how you
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Right, we're talking dating apps.
This is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be. Neither of us have ever been on one.
Yeah.
Because we're that old.
It's not to say we wouldn't like to be on one, but we just can't. We're prevented.
One of them is 10 years old, actually, Tinder. And millions of people, as we know, around the world use these sorts of sites. I've been to Tinder weddings myself. I know Tinder babies. They are often the product of happy Tinder stories. But
can you find love just by using your phone?
Or are they actually killing romance in many ways? Let's speak to journalist and author Louise Perry. She says dating apps create a consequence-free environment which enables everything from bad behaviour right up the scale to sexual assault. However, dating expert and psychologist Jo Hemming says dating apps have several advantages. I suppose possibly all of the above is true. But Louise, let's start with you, because you actually believe that probably on balance, this is benefiting men in particular and perhaps puts women back. Would you say that's a fair analysis?
I'd say it benefits a small minority of men. One of the things you see on dating apps, which is quite interesting, and it is in a way one of their advantages, that they give us access to a lot of data on how people behave in dating, which is very interesting just from an academic perspective. It's a small minority of men who get pretty much all of the matches. So on Tinder, I think it's the top 10% of the most attractive men get 60% of matches from women, whereas men who are less attractive are basically getting no attention at all, often left very frustrated by using dating apps and you know, like terribly failing in their efforts to find a partner. But this top 10% of men, they're having a whale of a time. You know, they've got pick of the bunch. They can go, you know, meet up with a new woman every night potentially. And I think the problem with that is that it does encourage bad behaviour from those men. And we hear so many stories from women who, you know, ghosting is routine, just general kind of really crude behaviour, like the way that men will introduce themselves on apps can often be really rude, really explicit from the get-go, asking for nudes straight away. You know, it's a really kind of savage and like quite hyper-masculine environment, which is, I think, to do with the fact that you've got this massive inequality among men, and that you've got some men who are have an amazing amount of choice and some men who have none whatsoever. And that inequality encourages the popular men to misbehave, basically the alphas to misbehave, and this is why you've got
Louise, I'm interested in this. You're making. I don't know anything about this, but is it a male-only environment? Is it a format that is to the advantage of men rather than women?
To some men, yeah, and I think that's why. I mean, so Tinder is now famously a hookup app, right? Despite the fact that there are some people, as you say quite rightly, who found marriage partners and so on Tinder. That's its reputation. And what keeps happening actually with new dating apps coming on the market, because there are so many now, is that the new ones will always come along and will pitch themselves as, oh no, this is the woman-friendly app. This is the one that's all about long-term relationships. This is about connection and intimacy.
Louise,
but it always ends up coming out like Tinder in the end.
Because we're fast approaching the end of the programme. Jo Hemming, dating expert and psychologist, though, you may tend to disagree with that, and you have used dating apps yourself in the past.
I have, but more importantly, I'm a dating coach, so I have several clients who use dating apps. The thing, we use the word Tinder, it's generic really for a lot of dating apps. There are some great dating apps out there, some bad dating apps out there, but much of it is how you use it. So all they do is that they enable bad behaviour. If you're going to be badly behaved, dating apps just allow you to sort of navigate that. So you've got to use them mindfully. You've got to master them. You've got to narrow down your requirements. You've got to get the right app. You've got to use it purposefully. I say to my clients, persevere, because there are some, bad guys out there. But if you use them wisely and beat them at their own game, there's an inherent conflict here because dating apps want you to find someone, but they also want to keep you on the app.
Yes.
So if you know a little bit about how the algorithm might work, also pay. Don't use it as a free service. You get much closer matches if you pay.
You see, we're old-fashioned in the sense that we were both married before these apps came around, but I think the same rule of thumb for me would apply if I were to go on it, in that I would never go for the jock-type character that Louise was describing there because of exactly that. In the old days, it was always the same. It was the rugby boys at university. They got all the girls, they slept around, they cheated on you, the bad behaviour was off the scale. You always go for the ones just below the absolute.
Yes,
sorry.
You can eliminate.
And that sounds like that's where you're going to find love through these apps. No offence to my hubby.
At this stage, I'd love a picture of your husband to flash up on screen, who incidentally is a good-looking boy. It has to be said. I don't believe you practice what you preach there, but anyway.
My little trick is when you're going through an app, instead of just mindlessly swiping, there's a fast swipe thing. Don't do that. Just imagine someone has said to one of your friends has said, this is my friend Mark, this is my friend Bill, this is my friend James. It makes you pause for a second if you think, oh, I'll have a closer look at that person. It's the fast swipe, and then you see someone cute and it's a fast swipe right. And you're just ending up creating your own narrative, actually, in some cases. You can change that.
So, Louise, are they the road to nowhere, basically, or is there a way that they can be reformed, these dating apps?
I think that this point that what the apps make money from is you being on them is a really, really good one, right? They're not actually designed to have people straight away meet the person of their dreams and then never use the app again because they're happily married, right? They are designed to kind of keep people going, and the success rate is really very poor in terms of like the number of people who are on these apps versus the number of people who actually end up having such relationships at the end. But they do give the impression of amazing optionality. You've got access to thousands of people potentially, particularly if you're in a big city. The problem is exactly right, this encouraging to swipe, the anonymity, the bad behaviour, the general feeling as though there's always someone else on Tinder. If you want to just kind of ditch a new relationship because it's not quite working, there's always someone else available at the click of a button. I think that actually encourages people to not invest in relationships, which is what you need to do if you're actually going to find a long-term match.
But Louise, finally and briefly, are they not a better alternative to loneliness?
Yes, but then I'd say that people used to find partners, and also, you can look at the graph in terms of how people used to meet people, and everyone's just flocking to dating apps. But those old methods do still exist. You can still meet people at work. You can still meet people through friends and through family and through hobbies. And dating apps might seem a bit easier in that they're right there on your phone, but actually the other methods tend to be more reliable.
Okay, Jo, would you agree?
Yes, I think, but the thing about it is the toxicity of dating apps that Louise is talking about is a very London thing. It's a very city thing.
Is it?
If you live in a town or a village, you haven't got queues of people, the next one. If you live in a town, particularly, it's very good to meet somebody. That there are limited numbers. People will not relate to this at all if they live outside a city, because it's just a very different
I hope we can continue this conversation, Louise and Jo, sometime in the future on this very show. And if we've whet your appetite or you have an experience, if you would get in touch with us with, what is it? It's gbnews@gbnews.uk. Or,
I think you'd have learnt it by now, Eamonn. 1st of September. 9 months we've been doing this.
Or tweet at GB News. I'd love to tell your story. We've got to end it there.
Yes,
Thank you.
It's all about Hinge now.
We're going to break up this great Hinge.
Yeah, it's not Tinder anymore. Apparently, the cool cats in the news.
Well, we've learned about Hinge. We've learned about dating apps. We've heard about Bumble. We've heard about elbows up the bum.
No, not up the bum.
No, but what was it? But was that not what he said?
No, an elbow in the bum.
Oh, an elbow in the. Sorry, there might be two different things. But anyway, it's very good for your health. Apparently, we found that out today. Maybe I should put that, if I was on Tinder, I might put that on that with me.
I think we're going to go.
Okay.
Leave it in the hands of Tom Harwood.
Very
Bye,
good.
guys.
Bye-bye.
See you next week.
Bye.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather updates. A dry and a fine day today. A little chilly out there this morning in places, but overall by this afternoon, a bit warmer than yesterday. However, the weather is on the change. Much wetter conditions heading our way. Low pressure approaching from the south and the northwest, squeezing away this area of high pressure. But that high is still dominant today. So, as I said, most places are dry. An easterly breeze bringing again a cool feel on some North Sea coasts and a bit more cloud across eastern England. 1 or 2 showers here and there too. But for the vast majority, it's dry, it's bright, with some spells of sunshine. We will see some showers heading up towards the Channel Isles, and the sunshine perhaps turning a little hazy across the south as the cloud starts to increase. But temperatures here still getting up into the mid-20s. Touch warmer than yesterday for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Many urban areas up to 20 Celsius here. Through this evening, I think we'll start to see a few more showers, initially just spreading up from France over the Channel into southern parts of England, but 1 or 2 more over northeast England, the cloud increasing across the northwest also. And by morning time, we'll see a few showers over the Midlands and into parts of Wales. A relatively warm night across the south, 15, 16 in towns and cities here, and a warmer night for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but still down to single figures in rural areas here. And a bright start here to Friday with some sunny spells, but we are going to see both those weather fronts we talked about, one coming up from the south, one coming in from the northwest, increasing the amounts of cloud and bringing more and more showers by the afternoon. Much of eastern England, good part of northern England will stay dry still, and even further south, if you're after rainfall, Friday's showers are still going to be very hit and miss, so no guarantee. But we are looking at much wetter conditions for all as we head into the weekend. Those 2 weather systems joining together to form one area of low pressure that's going to last through the weekend, bringing all of us some spells of rain. Goodbye.
Tonight on GB News, at 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners.